across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. How are you? How was your weekend? I hope it was full of frivolity and festivities and fun. At least I hope it was better than Sir Keir Starmer's. Oh, I bet he had a few sleepless nights, didn't he? Wow. Well, I don't know. I don't know on this one, guys. I don't know what I think. I don't know what he's thinking. Does anyone? But, you know, everyone starts acting like lemmings, don't they, in politics? So one person says, I'll resign. Then they'll go, resign, 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 resign. Do I think he's a good Prime Minister? No. Do I really want him to be Prime Minister? No. But do I want any of the other people who would replace him becoming Prime Minister? Hell no! My goodness, it's like the who's who. You shouldn't even have babysitting your dog. I mean, I cannot contemplate a reality where Angela Rayner becomes the Prime Minister. And people are, oh, that's misogynistic. Oh, it's classist. Oh, it's because... No. She's just totally unsuited for the job of Prime Minister, for crying out loud. We're not talking about who would be good managing the local nursery, who would be fun to entertain some kids during a school assembly, or who would be good at coordinating the timetables at the local supermarket. We're talking about the highest office of land. We're talking about the person, if Russia decided to come and have a go, would be the person calling the shots. Like, it's not a joke role, Prime Minister. And yes, you do need to be educated. And yes, you do need to know where countries are on a map. And yes, you do need to have presence in a room of international leaders. And yes, you do need to have better political ideology and conviction than the Ladybird Guide to Socialism. It's just unimaginable. Same with David Lammy. I'm sorry. When you look at the things these goons have said when they weren't even on the front benches, you know, when they were banging on about Trump being this and that and everything's racist and Tories are scum. They're a bunch of children. They're not even suited to being in the blimmin' cabinet. Not even suited to being MPs. Imagine, seriously, if one of those two becomes our next Prime Minister. Do you know, that would basically be rolling out the red carpet to Russia saying, why don't you come and have a pop? Because that thing is now in control. I don't even know which thing I'm talking to at this point, or talking about at this point. It's just unconscionable. I'm sorry. I don't care. You can be from the working class. You can leave school at 16. You can not be able to spell and still be a great leader. Like Bevin, right? Bevin, proper working class lad. His parents died at a young age, dragged him, I think he left school at 11 or something, went into trade union. He was a great politician. He really studied the art of statescraft and not my politics, of course, but there's nothing wrong with him. Nigel Farage, he didn't go to university, but he's got a brain in his skull, at least. I mean, these goons running our country, the most important job in the land at such a critical moment in our nation's history. You know, it's not like everything's hunky-dory out there and we can have the pantomime pony come and take over things for a while just for bants. Everything's falling apart. Our economy is in smithereens. We're geopolitically deeply unstable. We've only got enough armaments, enough sort of, you know, ammunition to last 8 days. 8 days! We're going to put Rayner in Downing Street. Really? Really? I don't like Starmer, but please don't go. Stay, man, stay. Because look at them. Look at these weirdos you've got in your cabinet. And if they're the ones who made it to cabinet, what else is there amongst the hordes of hundreds? I mean, I'd rather have Kamala Harris than blimmin' Angela Rayner, and that's saying something. What are your thoughts on all of this, eh? 03444991000. You can send me a WhatsApp. You can give me a phone call. It's your normal network rate. You can leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 8722 is the number if you'd like to send a text message. Instead, you've got to write the word talk before you text. I'm looking forward to reading your opinions on this as we go throughout the show. Right, let's bring in the brilliant Isabel Oakeshott, Talk International editor. The one big question everyone is asking, how long can Starmer hang on?
Well, I mean, this story has been moving so fast all day. And this morning I thought he might not last 48 hours. He appears to have bought himself some time by basically the whips pretty much forcing all the cabinet ministers to come out and utter completely empty and phony expressions of support for Keir Starmer. We know that these are lies. They all came out within the space of about an hour with roughly the same form of words saying that they're fully behind Keir Starmer, when we know full well that several of them are plotting furiously to take over from him. So I'm in no doubt that he is mortally wounded, but it does look as if he may stagger on for another few days, maybe even another few weeks. The only reason why he would last any longer is because whoever comes to take over from him does not want a disastrous set of May election results on their watch. That is the only reason they are all using him, potentially, just to carry the can for that. He can't last any longer than that.
But, I mean, Isabel, please tell me, is there anyone who's not Angela Rayner or David Lammy, or frankly, I mean, Wes Streeting's all right, but is there anyone okay in that party who could be the Prime Minister? You know, the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that little noise you made was priceless. I love that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm trying to think of a fair answer to that. I mean, of course, if you share our politics, which are somewhere to the right of loony lefty socialism, then the answer to your question is not really. I mean, I've never really bought into the sort of weird cult of Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, supposedly hard as nails, who's made all these proclamations about what difference she's going to make, tightening up our borders and so on, and has only ever presided over continuation of the same trend, which is the worst set of illegal immigration by small boat figures of any prime minister. So in my view, no, there is no solution for our country other than a general election. But I'm afraid I'm only putting the chances of a general election at somewhere between 5 and 10%.
Well, yes, because turkeys don't vote for Christmas, and the government would have to approve of there being a general election, and they've got a big majority. So the Labour MPs are basically, at the moment, just plunging the country into chaos, a bit like the Conservatives enjoy doing with their parlour games and musical chairs, while having no intention of giving up control or giving up their seats to actually have any sort of democratic voice in all of this. It's just they're turning us into a laughingstock again. I mean, we have been from the beginning because these governments are hopeless. But when I look at Labour as a whole, now, Starmer chills me to the bone, actually. I think the man isn't stupid. I think he's actually quite cunning. And I think he's very good at being a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing. I think he's good at looking sort of bureaucratic and managerial and kind of municipal. But the lawyers, his cohort of lawyers he's known all his life, who are the ones behind some of the more egregious things, the televised post-Southport trials, the handing over the Chagos Islands, etc. They're scary people, in my mind, because of what they believe in and their track record as barristers. But at least Sir Keir Starmer is somebody. And it's a really low bar here. But at least he's somebody who can turn up to a G7 and it doesn't look mental. You know, and I don't like him and I don't like this government. But if we're not getting rid of the Labour government as a whole, I'd rather we just kept him.
In other words, you think he's the least worst option of a very bad lot. You know, I think there's a really interesting question about Angela Rayner, because she's going to be much better for the general jollity of political reporters than anyone else. You know, she's good. She's kind of good photograph. She's good copy. She'll say some fun things. But here's the truth. Oh, and by the way, she also has the most incredible set of real life experience. So if you're looking for a politician who can truly empathize, who can truly relate to the struggles of the most deprived people in our country, that is Angela Rayner. You know, she has had a remarkably tough upbringing and backstory. But the question is that enough? Is that enough? Is that an appropriate qualification for the highest job in the land?
If I was a producer, right? If I was a TV producer and I was like, I'm going to make a reality series called The Prime Minister on Netflix, a bit like they did for Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, AOC in America, when she was sort of a candidate. If I was looking to make some sort of strange behind-the-scenes, fly-on-the-wall documentary for titillation, yeah, Angela Rayner would be absolute top casting. But I don't want my Prime Minister to have a groovy ASOS wardrobe. I don't care if my Prime Minister has real life experience where they can spell where they had a kid at 60. I just don't care. I don't mind if my Prime Minister is an absolute curmudgeon like Winston Churchill. You know, Winston Churchill doesn't come across as a particularly fun man, let's be fair, apart from, you know, getting absolutely tanked by about midday. That I can get on board with. But, you know, I don't want nice. I don't want great lived experiences. I want somebody who is capable of steering a ship through some of the most tumultuous waters we've ever faced. And I just think if we end up with Rayner in number 10, Putin will be sitting there going, get in, this is hilarious.
Well, there certainly won't be anything to laugh about in reality for our country and the people that live in it. And, you know, the real worry is that she is so ideological that she sends all the wrong messages to sensitive financial markets. What markets hate is uncertainty. And the worry will be that she is so emphatically imposed to what she calls austerity. I'm not going to imitate her accent because it would come across as snobbish, but this is what she goes on about, that she will not contemplate anything that smacks of austerity. In other words, cutting the enormously bloated welfare state. On the contrary, she actually probably instinctively wants to expand the welfare state. And the problem is there is no way that we have at this point of paying for that. And if she isn't able to kind of hold those instincts in check and put the economic stability ahead of those reflexes, there could be a financial disaster.
I think we're looming towards that, whatever happens, quite frankly. But, you know, she has been one of the worst in that cabinet. You know, let's push to one side, even though we shouldn't, the whole tax furore over this second home, which isn't remotely near her constituency. It's about 250 miles away from the people she's supposed to represent, which doesn't really show much decency or decorum. But even if you put that to one side, she's the housing minister who built basically zero houses. You know, she came up with this workers' rights bill that will absolutely destroy every last vestige of the hospitality industry, because you'll have a load of litigation against landlords because a drunk man has said, all right, love, you look nice, or something. You know, it's... These people, they're not serious people. They're not serious people at all. And I don't care how nice someone is. I don't care if they were called a racist in the play. I don't care about any of those things. I just want a serious person doing this job. My gosh, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, can we just bring back Sunak? I didn't love Sunak, but my God, he was like, you know, stratospheres above this bunch.
Well, I mean, Sunak was very bright, we'll give him that. On Angela Rayner's house building record, just to be fair on her, she hasn't built no houses. She's built about 270, not she personally, but she has managed to get built about 275,000 new homes. Now, to be on track for her own target, which she said she was absolutely determined to achieve, she would need to be doing about double that amount every year, because her target is 1.5 million, and if we say that they're going to get 5 years, which I'm afraid they may end up getting in power, that's she's got to build an awful lot more at the rate that she is going. Let's
talk about Anas Sarwar now, because I've decided I don't like him. Quelle surprise. I don't like him because, you know, to call this emergency press conference as the leader of Scotland saying, well, you know, I do like him. We've got a genuine friendship. I wish I wasn't doing it. It's not without pain, but we can't go on having the sideshow and the distraction. I'm like, well, how about you take your cruddy little plinth and get back in your office then, son? You know, all these people, I wish I didn't have to do this. Like, it's just becoming so distracting every time someone like me turns up and says, someone's got to resign. It's just put it away. I don't know. I hate it when politicians do this. You know, by all means, you can hate the leader of your party. You can have fiery debates as a group of politicians who come together, which I'm sure they're doing right now, as Starmer addresses the Labour MPs. But when you start dragging out your little podium to start calling for someone's resignation, saying it's a distraction, what?
Well, I think I was saying on Kev's show earlier, I mean, it is a bit different if you are based north of the border and, you know, they've got their own parliament and you've got a little bit more liberty to say it as it is. So I'm not sure I completely agree with your analysis there. You know, some people will regard what he did today, the leader of Scottish Labour, as quite honest. You know, to me, it rings a lot more true than the string of cabinet ministers who took to Twitter with their pre-prepared lines on social media saying that, you know, the worst possible thing for the country right now would be to have a change of prime minister. We know that's not what they really think, and yet they put it out there, taking us all for fools. At least Anas Sarwar is actually saying what everyone else is thinking.
Right, that's true, actually. He's stabbing him in the front rather than saying, we've got your back, and behind that back there's a dagger pointed at your spine. Let's have a little listen to Anas Sarwar from earlier.
This isn't easy, and it's long without pain, as I have a genuine friendship with Keir Starmer. But my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. And I am not willing to sacrifice Scotland's NHS, our schools, our communities, our towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of an SNP ground. That's why the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
We can now also see Bridget Phillipson, who was talking about Anas Sarwar earlier on today on Sky.
Look, it was only 18 months ago that Keir secured a massive landslide victory for the party, secured a 5-year term to deliver that change. You know, change does take time, and we're all impatient for change to happen more quickly, including the voters. But Keir is getting on and doing that, and we as a government are getting on and delivering the change that we were elected to deliver. You know, just last week, we voted in Parliament to lift 450,000 children out of poverty through the changes that we are making. I announced our plans to roll out even more new free breakfast clubs across the country that will be a huge boost to working parents. That's what we ought to be focused on as a government. That's what people want to see. And whilst I have enormous respect for Anas, I've known him for a long time, I just profoundly disagree. I don't think this is the right approach, and I do believe Keir is the right person to lead our country.
What do you make of Wes Streeting? Because out of all of them, he's the one I think is the most plausible. He's the one that I personally like the most if there's going to be a Starmer replacement. I think it's quite a canny political move to publish his private texts with Lord Mandelson at the time that he did. First of all, to sort of say, yes, I own it, we were friends, we know each other. This is to demonstrate that there wasn't anything untoward going on, although if you're in control of the publication of those texts, you probably have a little bit of editorial overview as well. But also to time it for when Starmer is facing his own MPs. And one of the messages that just happened to slip out, didn't it, was a conversation between him and the Dark Prince about Sir Keir Starmer not having economic philosophy followed through in a programme of policies, which I tend to agree with. I mean, this government, especially when it comes to pulling together any sort of cohesive plan, when I think of the general election, the snap election, all they argued about is growth, 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 growth. Well, it isn't happening. And at least I kind of look at someone like Wes Streeting and I get the impression he's not necessarily of the extreme loony left. I still don't think he's Prime Minister material, but he's not Angela Rayner.
I mean, I would never describe Wes Streeting as loony left. I would say that he is on the sensible wing of the party, and it's a very small wing. If it were a plane, it would not be taking off because one wing would be so small. And he is on that wing. I'm afraid he's probably not going to make it all the way to number 10. He hasn't got the same level of support in not just in the parliamentary party, but among the grassroots members as either Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. And
oh no, I forgot about him. Oh,
yeah,
he's
sorry,
no.
we might have to talk about Ed Miliband. Sorry.
Oh gosh, no, he's the worst actually. Oh no, I don't know who's worse out of Miliband and Rayner.
Well, I think Miliband at least is smart, although smart can be dangerous if it's pointed in the wrong direction.
No, that's
ourselves there to the point we can't say any more. We're literally just like, oh, okay, this is it.
Oh dear. Let's take a little break, shall we? Because it feels quite traumatic. I need a strong cup of tea to help me begin the process of healing from the PTSD to come in apprehension of whatever might manifest in the wake of Sir Keir Starmer. Please don't go, Keir. I can't believe I'm saying it. Right, we are going to have that little break. You lucky things. I'm going to have a little cheeky cup of tea that Matthew's going to bring in shortly, which will already be tepid, no doubt. Not his fault. It's just I can only get them during advert breaks. You, however, get to go and pour yourself a strong one. I think you're going to need it. See you in a moment.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, so I'm just making myself laugh. If you don't laugh, you cry, don't you? I was just talking with the crew behind the glass about who, you know, if we could just nominate a fantasy character to be Prime Minister, who would it be? And for some reason, I came up with Bricktop from Snatch. I don't know why. I just think that could be entertaining, and he'd probably be quite effective. Right, back to you then, Isabel. I mean, Angela Rayner's already made a website, hasn't she? We've seen this before. That what was Starmer, ready to back sooner. No, ready for Rishi. That was it. That website existed about a year before anyone decided to kick Boris Johnson up the backside. So this is not unusual for this to happen, but it seems. Is it sloppy or is it deliberate that it's come out that she's got this shiny new website?
No, I'm sure that's an error. I think it's all been deleted now. I mean, I don't think any of us are in any doubt over her ambitions, that she's got her sights on the top job. I think, but perhaps more interesting is who else might throw their hat into the ring, and whether or not this is actually a sort of done deal. I mean, there's a real tension between Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner in terms of competing for the popular vote amongst the membership. Many surveys suggest that it's actually Ed Miliband, who is more popular with Labour voters. And then there's the whole issue of where do the trade unions fall in their backing, and she seems to have that side of the vote fairly well sewn up. We're just showing, for people who are listening, not watching, showing pictures of Angela Rayner with Rachel Reeves. I'm pretty sure if Keir Starmer goes, Rachel Reeves is also finished. And so it was no surprise to see that she would come out and support the Prime Minister. Their fates are inextricably entwined.
How does the Labour leadership contest go? Because, I mean, we had enough of this during the Conservative era. We actually got used to it so often. Oh, look, there's old Graham Brady. Out he comes from the stationary cabinet, counting some envelopes again. That means we've got 2 months of hustings and going around the country and then a big head-to-head debate. And, oh, your new Prime Minister, here they are. My understanding is the Labour Party take about 6 months to do theirs.
It's funny because it hasn't actually happened for so long that I can't really remember when it did last happen. It was when Labour were well in opposition, and therefore, no one was taking it that tremendously seriously at the time. And I think it was sort of well known it was going to be Starmer. And then casting back to the Blair-Brown years, of course, that was all sewn up between Blair and Brown. So we haven't actually seen this play out in a kind of mirror image of the way these Tory leadership contests, of which we've seen so many, play out. It is more, there is a sort of complicated issue of the trade union votes and so on, but don't test me on the minutiae of the exact mechanics of it. What we can be sure is it will be painful to observe.
But I mean, I am assuming we would have to have some sort of caretaker Prime Minister. It'd be weird for Sir Keir Starmer to say, I'm going to resign as Prime Minister, but I'll do so when we've picked the new Labour leader, because I don't know how he would function as a Prime Minister who's already sort of, pinned the tail on the donkey, so to speak. So I don't really know how that would work. And then who would be the sort of caretaker Prime Minister? Oh my God. Do you know, the one thing I am thinking is this. When the Conservative Party were farting around, constantly having their vanity, competitions, their sort of Margaret Thatcher cosplay conventions, I thought to myself, if you could just sit down, write some blooming policy and do what you're supposed to be doing, you might get some useful things done. Whereas with the Labour Party, I'm beginning to think now, do you know what? If Starmer resigns, we've got 6 months of mayhem. At least we would get half a year's reprieve for mad socialist policies.
So I don't think it really is literally 6 months. By the time after the next ad break, we will, I'm sure, tell people how long it is, because I should know this, and I'm sorry that at the top of my head I don't. I would have thought there's two options really. One is that Keir Starmer just says, "Fine, I'll stay. I'm leaving, but I'll stay in post until the next Labour leader has been chosen," and that would be a very normal way of managing things to try to avoid sort of too much rockiness in the markets, particularly if it is a longer contest. There's no need for instant panic. The alternative is that Keir Starmer considers that he's absolutely had enough and he's just walking out now. That doesn't look particularly likely. He's obviously a man who enjoys being Prime Minister. But if he were to do that, then you would almost certainly get a David Lammy interim premiership, which, is probably a bit of a head-in-hand situation.
It really is. Do you know, let's cheer ourselves up with a thought here. You've seen the film Anchorman, I'm guessing. It's a legendary cult classic. If you haven't, I'll explain the scene that comes to mind. Which is, in Anchorman, they have like this battle of the newsrooms, and they sort of meet in a car park, and sort of three of them come out, like cowboy style, size each other up, and then basically have a fisticuffs in the middle of the outside world. And I'm kind of thinking it'd be quite good if we could figure out who the running mates are, if it's sort of like, I don't know, Rayner, Phillips and Miliband versus Streeting someone and someone. We could just watch them have a Mad Max style moment, or at least if they don't do this in reality, maybe the crew Kuchen Gazette can magic that one up on AI, because that at least would give us a bit of comic reprieve. Let's take another short break now, and when we come back, well, there's still so much to ruminate over. Let's do some of your messages as well, because I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. Alex, stop saying sorry for having an opinion. It's just what the lefties like to hear. Do I keep... I'm just English, you know? God, didn't someone write something weird in The Guardian today saying we need to stop saying thank you? Huh? What is this blimmin' clown country I live in? Few people think that I should be Prime Minister. Well, I'd be careful if I were you, because I would be a tyrannical one. Darren Jones, who seems very good when he's on the media run. I'm not sure I really even can pull him out of a line out right now. Starmer should reinstate Corbyn into the Labour Party, so when Starmer is forced out, there is a credible candidate to take over, says Jamil Mohammed. At least with Jeremy Corbyn, you kind of know what he's all about, at least. Angela Rayner versus Georgia Maloney. No contest. We're at the lowest of the lowest point politically. Pygmies, says Steve in Bromsgrove. I think we're at the lowest of the lowest of the lowest point. And even then, if you excavate even further down, get some sort of, record-breaking mechanical drill, giant sort of 6-foot diamond drill bit on the end, and pummel all the way into Earth's core. No, we're still lower than that. Forget the politics, Alex. Have you had your hair done? Gaza. Yeah, the makeup lady downstairs did some shaping on it, but that's it. I know I had a ponytail a couple of days last week and people moaned about it. I like a ponytail. It's easy, it's efficient. Right, OK, having a short break now. Top yourself up and I'll see you on the other side.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, hello, that's just catching up with X. Get some good news on that thing. Find out what the latest is sometimes, but I haven't really seen much other than he's finished his meeting. That's all we know. Isabel, right, where shall we pick up on all of this? I mean, Angela Rayner, on her manoeuvre, she ain't subtle, is she? She's as subtle as a blimmin' sledgehammer. Has actually phoned up HMRC saying, can I help you speed up your investigations a little bit? Perhaps she should be careful what she wishes for, although I have heard murmurings that potentially she could be cleared.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to start by coming back, because I promised to come back with some information about how long the contest will take when it comes. And it's 8 to 12 weeks. I did think 6 months was a particularly agonising and unlikely prospect. And indeed, it is more like the kind of time frame that it takes the Conservative Party. And it may well be that that doesn't begin then properly until after May, if somehow or other everybody has decided that it's the least worst option. I mean, everybody in the cabinet, that it's the least worst option to sort of allow him to stagger on until then this would kick off in May, and we would get a new Labour leader stroke Prime Minister just sort of around the time that MPs disappear for their long summer on the sun lounger.
Let's spitball for a moment. Because why is it that we seem to change our Prime Minister more often than we, I don't know, change our underwear these days? I'm not speaking for myself, of course. I'm fresh and fragrant and in very fine fettle. Thank you very much. But it's become a strange trope of the United Kingdom now that, oh, look, here we go again. Don't like this Prime Minister. Out they go. Is it because we've just got a really implausibly dreadful class of politician? Is it because we now live in an era of social media and rolling news where everything just gets blown up and arguments that would normally happen below surface level are played out in the public eye? Is it because we've now got to a stage where, you know, any sort of peccadillo and it's like, resign, resign, you must go? Or, I mean, why is this, do you think?
Well, you make a really interesting point, and it was something I was sort of reflecting on earlier today when I was thinking about Italian politics, because Italian politics has long been like this, and in fact the period of stability in Italy is really quite unusual. I mean, Giorgia Meloni now is approaching, I think, probably nearly 4 years in power, 3 or 4 years in power now. The average lifespan of an Italian prime minister is a fraction of that.
Yes, true.
Used to changing their prime minister at the drop of a hat. And for us, actually, that is a relatively new phenomenon. If you think about how long Blair was in power, Gordon Brown came at the end, obviously, of those 3 years of Labour control of our country, but he still had sort of 2.5, 3 years. And then you had David Cameron in the coalition lasting 5 years. It was only post-Brexit that everything became so tumultuous in British politics. And I think that era might have ended, that era of kind of constant turmoil might have ended with the huge majority that the Tory Prime Minister Boris Johnson secured, an 80+ majority, had it not been for COVID, which then upended everything all over again, plunging our country into a kind of doom loop from which I don't think it's ever recovered. So I think we've had these two unique things. On the one hand, Brexit and the agonies that were created by having a bunch of MPs who didn't represent what the country voted for. And that led to such torturous changes of people in charge and loss of power and so on. And then hot on the heels of that, just when that was almost literally when that had been sort of sorted out, at least technically, you know, we had left the EU in the early weeks of Boris Johnson's premiership, along came COVID. And so now we are where we are. And by all historical accounts, a Labour government coming in after these 2 periods of immense drama, a Labour government coming in after long years of Tory rule with a huge majority should never be in this situation.
Yeah. No, it's interesting actually, because I remember at the time, during the really unsightly, unpolitical, anti-democratic turmoil of those post-Brexit years, I think that this really horrible sense of ill discipline became deep-rooted in politicians where, you know, by and large, it's a collegiate game. Whether you like the policy or not, you're not going to please everybody in your political party, ever. And not everyone's going to like who the leader is. But once upon a time, politicians knew better. They knew to zip it and get on with getting on for the sake of the party, for the sake of the country. And I think that Brexit sort of concretised this really ugly lack of hierarchy, lack of discipline, lack of cohesion, where politicians suddenly thought that they're the big I am. They're 5 minutes of fame popping up on Politics Live or the tweet that goes viral. But I also think it's this, and it might explain why someone like Giorgia Meloni has fared very well. Because it's very clear that what's going on in the decline of the Western world is not going to be solved by leftism. It's a bit like, you know, really struggling to walk and buying a new pair of shoes every single week and finding it's not helping the situation because you've got necrotizing fasciitis of the feet. You know, it's like we can keep putting on different.
Buying new shoes, though, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't deny anyone that small pleasure.
No, indeed. But it does seem like, you know, I often say at the moment it's almost like the country's got cancer, and having a socialist government's like giving cigarettes as the answer. Like, here you go, have some more. It's perhaps, you know, the only thing that will stabilise the country is when we do technically move towards a government that really does impose the will of a great number of the people. I'd say majority lightly. I think actually if you added up all those people on the sort of, you know, right of centre, it probably is the majority. The other lot just, you know, shout a lot louder and are more aggressive. But again, it is, of course, my own personal political bias, but you don't get growth through left-wingery. You don't heal the divisions in society through identity politics. Everything that the Labour government has to offer is going to exacerbate the problems that we have.
Well, of course, I agree with that, because you and I share the same political leanings. And I really think that there is a revolution coming. Now, that revolution is not because millions of people have suddenly decided that they love the Reform Party or that they love the Green Party. It's that millions of people have become energised and politically engaged in a way that they never planned to be and don't even want to be. But I think a lot of politicians say it's going to have to get worse before it gets better. And we're in that phase right now. Where it's still getting worse, and people are really experiencing it. They're seeing it, they're feeling it. And for the first time, a lot of people for whom politics has just been something that's going on in the background, you know, because successive governments in the old days were sort of vaguely competent, roughly did the job, and didn't have to be part of everybody's lives, worrying about who's up, who's down, and all of that. That is no longer the case. Things have got so difficult for so many people, and they object so viscerally to what is happening to our country, to the changes that they see before their very eyes, be that to the changing demographics, be that cultural changes, be that to a feeling of not being safe on our own streets, be that fearing for their children's future, be that declining standards of living, the real worries for the younger generation of can they get on the property ladder, what are their job prospects. All of that, I think, is motivating a whole load of people who never felt this angry about politics before and are absolutely itching to make their voice heard now.
I tell you something really scary I saw the other day, which was there's a X account, I think, called Stats for Lefties, and I think they had reproduced a poll which may or may not have been done by YouGov. I'll have to go back and check it. But the poll was essentially of young people. I can't remember what the age limit was. Again, I'll have to go back and check. But it's sort of, you know, let's say 18 to 25-year-olds. And it showed in this poll that the majority, or the largest cohort of 18, 25-year-old male voters were backing the Green Party. And I thought, what has gone wrong? Like, how? But this is a party that is vibes, basically. It's just vibes. And when you actually dig below the vibes, there's some pretty grim stuff that they are purporting. I at least thought if we had sane people in the younger generations, it might be among the young men folk. And I just didn't expect them to look at that Zach Polanski joke show and think, yeah, that'd be really good running the country.
Well, I don't know what poll that was, and I'm not sure that I trust it. You know, I don't know what the sample size was. I didn't see the data. But there is absolutely no doubt that there is an equally encouraging groundswell of support for parties on the genuine right, not the far right, the genuine conservative with a small c, parties from young voters, and particularly young, boys and late teenagers. And that, I think, is quite encouraging.
Let's take another ad break. Therefore, I might be able to dig out this poll and realise that it's all bunkum or otherwise. When we come back, let's switch it up a bit and talk about other stories about today, because no doubt we're going to be chewing our faces off discussing the Labour Party until 10 o'clock. Actually, no, because at 9 o'clock we're joined by the brilliant Steve N. Allen for Weird Hour, which you do not want to miss this Monday, do you? It's going to put a spring back in your step at the start of the week. But yes, we're going to take a little breather now, but don't go anywhere, because I'm going to be talking about some other things knocking talking about in the news with Isabel just after this.
Calamity Lammy? I mean, seriously, does anyone believe that he could be Prime Minister of our country? Angela Rayner, who is still under investigation from HMRC for failing to pay her taxes. And then you've got Wes Streeting, who supposedly is the grown-up, but he was the bloke who organised Peter Mandelson's stag do and is in this up to his neck. So it's a group of completely terrible candidates. None of these people, frankly, are capable of arresting the decline that the country is in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. It was indeed actually a YouGov poll that I had spotted online, which shows that 30% of young men in a general election, this was done between 14th of December and 9th of January, 30% would vote for the Green Party. And that goes up to 44% with young women. I mean, young women are balmy. I used to be one, I should know. Right, let us get Isabel back on. Let's talk about reform. They've just opened their candidate application process for the next election. I've had a little look at one of those emails. They're charging 250 quid to throw your hat into the ring. Could be a nice little money spinner for them. I would imagine that a lot of people are looking at reform, and because they don't have the historic architecture of people in safe seats and extant politicians, then a lot of people might be thinking, hey, I quite fancy having a go at being an MP. There's going to be a heck of a lot brand new faces, aren't there?
Party is expecting an absolute tsunami of applications. I mean, there are already thousands of people that want to be councillors, and I do think that that's really God's work, because it's not glorious, is it? It's not well paid. There's no glamour with being a councillor, but it is the first rung on the political ladder, an amazing experience. And there have been so many people that brilliantly have been prepared to do that, have been up for it. But just imagine how many people are going to be thinking that they would quite fancy a tilt at being a parliamentarian. And I think the party has got to watch out for, you know, just opportunists, really. It isn't right for people to be able to just swan in who've demonstrated no interest in public life or made any real contribution, to imagine that they're just going to get fast-tracked. And I'm afraid there's an awful lot of those people. Now, Nigel Farage has rightly said that he wants to bring in people who have brilliant experience and have had stellar careers which are not political. And I think that's absolutely right. You know, there should be more of those types of people in politics, but they need to also be really dedicated to the cause, rather than just thinking of this as a, you know, as a little bit of an adventure.
Yeah, a couple of things that's just crossed my mind there. One is when I think about Nigel Farage saying, oh, we really need to get some, you know, really good, strong, brilliant businessmen in. Well, he tends to not keep them. And I think the thing is, when you've got people who've reached the top of their game, they're not going to be top of the game when it comes to being in reform, because that's Nigel. And how many of these sort of brilliant big alpha male businessmen, or women, are able to become a cog in a political machine?
Well, I think there are different ways of doing it. And I don't think that this is a Nigel problem. It's a problem with encouraging or persuading the most successful people in business to want to go into politics at all. And who can blame them? You know, there is a kind of popular misconception that somehow going into politics makes you money. It's the absolute opposite. It completely pummels you for money. You know, if you're already a successful person, going into politics in Britain is not going to make you remotely richer. It's going to make you spectacularly poorer. And added to that is the endless hostile scrutiny. You know, if you are a business owner and you go into politics, there's a real risk that you're going to heavily devalue your company because your customers may not like your political direction. And worse than that, you may find yourself targeted by those awful campaign groups like Hope Not Hate that think nothing of trying to trash brands because they align in the wrong way or are perceived to. So it's highly risky for business people to go into politics, and the history of it is not that promising. You know, there have been a number of attempts over the years, particularly under during the Gordon Brown's years, of trying to bring in titans of captains of industry to go and run Whitehall departments, to actually show civil servants how to run things like a business. And it's hard to think of any that have actually worked out. You know, they tend to fall out of politics quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've always been sort of against this idea that politicians have come from this long conveyor belt of starting off as working in an MP's office, and then you might become a councillor, then you might become a SPAD, and then you get your chance to stand. But one thing I do think that is useful about that system is you've sort of baked into somebody loyalty. You've baked into somebody the understanding that politics is a team game, that you have to tug your forelock, that you have to show your loyalty, that you have to demonstrate that you are part of that family. Because what we've seen in recent years is a lot of factions and fighting in politics. And it does strike me that, you know, certainly some of the people that Reform has sort of welcomed with, huge amount of cheerleading and fireworks, have turned out to not really be, however brilliant they are, not really able to form part of a team. But also, one thing that the party seems to be sort of loosely keen on pursuing is always having local candidates. And I wonder if that will serve them in the long run, because you might end up with a very safe seat with an appalling list of potential candidates. And if you want to start building a cabinet and seeking more than one term, you need to know that person's not going to lose their seat in the long run. Nigel himself isn't from Essex, is he? But also there might be someone utterly superb who you want in your cabinet, and they just happen to be from, I don't know, Edinburgh or something, and they wouldn't stand a gnat's chance at being elected up there.
What are you thinking of doing, Alex? Are you thinking that you fancy it?
Oh, I don't know what I'm thinking of doing, Isabel. I'm just thinking about the next advert break and what sort of cup of tea I'm going to enjoy, my love.
Oh, there you go. That was a dodge. You see, you put me on the spot the other day about who's getting what jobs in a potential reform cabinet. So I'm just being cheeky and turning it around on you and putting you on the spot.
I'm going to challenge Nigel for leadership.
I think you'd make a tip-top MP. But it's the trouble about being an MP is that it is not a meritocracy. So you can be the most hardworking, the most dedicated, the most loyal politician, and I've seen this happen time and time again, and you still don't get where you think you deserve to be, or where even objectively you do deserve to be. It is not a meritocracy. People rise to the top on the oddest of combinations of circumstances, and I think that can be quite difficult for successful, driven people to deal with. It takes a certain personality to be willing to actually to say, and I would say that perhaps the happiest MPs are the ones that genuinely love their constituency work, the ones that go into it not thinking they're going to be Prime Minister, the ones that go into it enjoying being the one that turns up at the village fete time and time and time again, going around the local schools, going around the local hospitals. That inglorious thing, there are MPs that actually love that. And those are the happy MPs, because whether or not they get up the greasy pole doesn't matter so much to them. Think of someone like David Amess, actually, who had his own campaigns on animal welfare and other campaigns that were his thing. And he was just quite happy to be David Amess MP. Wasn't looking to be the right on this or the Secretary of State for that. That seemed to work really well for him. What a tragedy.
Yeah, no, it's true, actually. And I think that is really important. People who have got that sort of real love for constituency and real sort of sense of duty and service. Although saying that, I am from Gloucester, and Gloucester will turn turquoise by current standards. So there you go. I could think about it, perhaps. But you know what? I'm quite happy sitting in this seat. I thoroughly enjoy doing what I do. And if I go, you know, if I leave there, they might not have me back. Right. By the way, Sir Keir Starmer, we've got a little hint of what he told his MPs in that meeting. It has been reported that he has said, and I do quoth, I have won every fight I've ever been in. Have you? I fought to change the Crown Prosecution Service so it better served victims of violence against women and girls. I fought to change the Labour Party to allow us to win an election again. People told me I couldn't do it. And then they gradually said, you might just get over the line. Well, we won with a landslide majority. Every fight I've been in, I have won. So there you go. It does seem like fighting talk from Starmer. Certainly doesn't seem like he's ready to throw in the towel. And I kind of fancy, I really do. I mean, I don't know what's going to be revealed when the sort of Mandelson files are published. But I kind of think if he digs his heels in and just sort of closes his eyes for a sweet week or two, he could weather it.
Well, it is very difficult to remove Labour prime ministers that don't, Labour leaders that really, really don't want to go. You know, they can just sort of brazen it out, and maybe that is what he's hoping to do. But I think Labour MPs, as they stare down the abyss of potentially losing their seats, and you know, they know just how corrosive this has been to their party's popularities. They look at the ever steady rise of reform. They look at their own poll ratings going right down. I'm not sure they're just going to tolerate this for very long at all. You know, I think that is wishful thinking.
I think it probably is wishful thinking. It's almost like once the rot has set in, it's really hard. It's like black mould. It's really hard to get rid of it when it starts spreading everywhere and you can detect the canker in your midst. It's really hard to sort of put a cover of paint over it and go, oh, there you go, nothing to see here. It always comes back. Isabel, thank you ever so much. It's always wonderful catching up with you, my darling heart. Isn't she just splendiferous? Now, she would be a really good MP, wouldn't she? Imagine that. Let's do some messages. Oh, Jamil, look at you. That's really nice. He says, your command of the English language combined with a good sense of humour makes listening to you enjoyable, even if on some issues we disagree. I wouldn't expect people to agree with everything I said, unless they worked for me. Right. Hi, Alex. So pleased you are here, but you would be a great MP for reform, says Linda in Cumbria. Great to see you and Isabel talking. You would have my vote. Like I said, I really do enjoy being here. I have a little bit of fun, and there's going to be some of that coming up, especially as we near the 9 o'clock hour. So pour yourself a three-finger G&T, and I will see you just after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back. What is your poison? What are you on? Is it a big clinker, about 85 cubes of ice and some sort of flower vase adorned like a Pimm's with half the garden? Not there's much going on in the garden at the moment. You know, 3 measures of gin and tonic, some Schweppes in the top, rattling it around like this. Is it a nice tinny, you know, the welcome therapeutic sound of a lager? Or are you being very sensible and just making yourself a nice cup of tea like me? That's 2 down now. 2 down and about 25 to go. I tell you what, it's a perilous thing, the amount of tea I drink, because at 10 o'clock when I come off air, I have to run like Usain Bolt to try and make... Would I like another one, Matt? Yes, please. He's great, isn't he? I have to run like the wind to try and make the 10:30 train, and it's 50-50. Sometimes I make it. When I do, I'm like air punching, sweat pouring down, and it means I get through my front door at a reasonable hour before midnight. If I miss that train, and it really is knife edge, I have to wait an awfully long time, and I don't get in until something that feels incredibly antisocial. And it's just hard work. And the problem is, right, after 85 cups of tea during a 3-hour process where I'm basically, you know, sort of wired into this chair, I don't have time. I can't sort of finish and go to the toilet. I've just got to run, got to go. And it's just, oh, honestly, it's perilous. The jeopardy of my commute every night is something that it's going to kill me. I'm just going to, I won't be here by the end of the week. It'll have done me in. That's a pleasant conversation to have, isn't it? Right, what are your thoughts and feelings on everything going on? If not Starmer, who? Who? Pray tell. 0344 499 1000 is the number to send me a WhatsApp or leave me a voice note or even give me a call. Don't phone right now because Matt's just gone to make a cup of tea. But when he's back with my next steaming brew, he will be there to register your details and give you a call back at the opportune moment. 87222 is the number if you'd rather send a text message. If you're going to do that, you've got to write the word talk before you text. But hold your thoughts for now, because you're going to want to listen to the next guest, because he is probably the best Politico in the business at analysis, at knowing everything. He's like a truffle pig for information. He's the absolutely irreplaceable, amazing, erudite Peter Cardwell. Hello, young Peter. How are you?
I'm very well, Alex. What an introduction. A truffle pig for information. My goodness.
Yeah, we don't often get to hang out together, you and I. We sort of always, basically, we can never be in the room at the same time, because if one's doing the shift, the other's doing the shift. So actually being able to...
I can confirm we're not the same person.
We're definitely not the same person. Oh, in my dreams to be as handsome as you, Peter. Although we do both love cats.
That is true.
Which means that we're, you know, clearly the soundest people on earth. Now, what is the gossip, basically? What is going on? He's had this meeting. Has he managed to, do you think, persuade MPs in his party that actually rocking the boat right now is not advisable? Or is the writing on the wall?
I think it's actually both of those. It's both the writing is on the wall, but things aren't going to rock for a little while. I think this will calm down. You've got every member of the cabinet publicly backing him. Bizarre thing this evening that Wes Streeting has given all of his messages that he sent to Peter Mandelson and Sky News have published them, which is a slightly weird development today among many weird developments, alongside Morgan McSweeney going as Chief of Staff yesterday and the Director of Communications, Tim Allen, going this morning. But I think the stability only lasts until the local elections, because if there is a Labour leadership election right now, well, then we're in the situation where they're electing a leader at the same time as trying to persuade people to vote for them at the local elections, which is going badly. We know it's going badly because of the polls. We know it's going badly because of what's happening. Then I think after the 7th of May, also who wants to be leader to soak up that defeat, then that all gets pinned on Starmer, and then he probably goes after that. But there was a sort of weird attempt today. Anna Sarwar, the leader of Labour in Scotland, a man very famous in his own family and not be really beyond that, attempted to take down Keir Starmer, saying he no longer had confidence in him and thought he should stand down. Probably the most senior figure to have done that. But really, there was no one rallying to his cry. There were very few people who really went with that. So it felt a bit flat. And I think Keir Starmer will be probably sighing or having a sigh of relief this evening. He's safe, I think, for a short time, possibly as long a time as until the 7th of May. But after that, I think all bets are off.
I actually think it's probably the opposite. I bet Sir Keir Starmer's going, oh, God, do I have to do this for, like, 4 more months? I've always got the impression he doesn't really enjoy it. But, I mean, they would actually
nobody ever leaves voluntarily. You're right that he's not enjoying it. That's plain to see. But he's not. Nobody ever leaves voluntarily.
That's true, actually. That is very true. But it would make more sense, frankly speaking, to wait until the summer recess, because trying to sort of conduct a leadership election while politics is still live and very much active in the run-up to elections, and not just the local elections, of course, but those devolved governments who, frankly, I mean, basically Wales has been a Labour Party, one-party state ever since the creation of the Senedd. Scotland, a slightly different picture, but, far more left-wing than the other parts of the United Kingdom. And it wouldn't seem to me to make much sense to have this sort of, fisticuffs, political fisticuffs right now. But who would your money be on? Because it's very clear. We know we can see people out of the corner of our eye in our peripheral vision, or just, slap bang straight in front of us, sharpening their knives, getting their websites ready, on manoeuvres, phoning up HMRC saying, can we just expedite that investigation a little bit? We can see that there are people right now salivating at the opportunity to usurp the throne from Sir Keir Starmer. But who would your sort of principal runners and riders be? Because you're much closer to the action than I am.
Well, I'll say there are probably 5 people in for this. I think that Wes Streeting has given all his Peter Mandelson messages to be published today. That means that Wes Streeting has made a calculation that this is going to happen at some stage. He needs to distance himself as much as possible from Peter Mandelson, get that bad publicity, a little bit of ripple of bad publicity out of the way, and then leave him on a clear run. I think that Angela Rayner, as you correctly intimated there, she needs that investigation to HMRC to be concluded for her to pay back her the stamp duty that she should have paid in the first place. That will then presumably go away. Ed Miliband, believe it or not, is a very popular candidate in the Labour Party, with Labour Party members, not certainly with talk viewers and listeners, it must be said, or in the country more generally. But that is the only way that he could become Prime Minister. I think it's highly unlikely he would ever win an election, and certainly didn't in 2025. Then there's Shabana Mahmood, who's not particularly well known really at the moment. There are a few questions about her, and a lot of people who won't like her being, as they would see it in the Labour Party, too right-wing. I'm not sure that too many people in the country would agree with that, but lots in the Labour Party will think that way. Then there is the complete wild card, which is Al Cairns, who is the Defence Minister, who is a really interesting character. He's a war hero. He won the Military Cross for bravery. He commanded the SBS, the Special Boat Service. He was a colonel in the Royal Marines. Really, really interesting guy. Fascinating backstory and a lot of integrity there as well. So I think there are probably 5 likely candidates. There are others who will throw their hat in the ring, most definitely. It will be a very fractious debate. I think people like Bridget Phillips and maybe even Liz Kendall would want to go for that as well, although Bridget Phillipson lost the deputy leadership. So there's a lot to play for. And honestly, I know this sounds bizarre, but honestly, the most likely candidate at the moment is probably Ed Miliband, because you're looking at the people in the Labour Party who would vote for him. You're not. I know, Alex. We're all thinking it. I know you've got your hands to your face at the moment, but actually, I mean, if Ed Miliband becomes Prime Minister of this country, we can always pack up and move to France. But it is the Labour Party members love him.
Oh gosh, Ed Miliband, I just feel like, I've never looked at a politician before and thought, wow, you actually commit acts of sabotage against your own country, which is what Ed Miliband does.
And himself by eating that bacon sandwich. The bacon sandwich wielding assassin is waiting in the wings.
Oh, it's so weird. Why can't we have normal people in politics? I mean, politics doesn't tend to attract normal people, but it's just sort of...
You and I both worked on it, so what does that say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we know close up that what I said is totally true. It doesn't tend to attract the most normal of characters. But there's one thing about, being a little bit kooky. There's another thing about being like Ed Miliband. But, I mean, with their process of getting a party leader... Isabel was telling me it's a sort of 8 to 12 week process if we're going to be faced with that. Does it work similarly to the Conservatives' machinations? Are there sort of other bolted on bits, because trade unions seem to have a big say? I've no doubt that we'd be blessed with the sort of, 5 candidates having a big old spat on live television, which would actually be a great popcorn moment for the likes of us, no doubt, but fairly unedifying for the country, I'd imagine. But does it sort of run on the same rails as the Conservative leadership election, which we all got to know so very intimately?
Not quite, because you need, first of all, you need people to be out there and public in terms of saying that a leadership election should happen. You need 81 people, 80 if it includes the candidate themselves, publicly on the record saying that the Prime Minister or the leader of the party should go. That's not the case in the Conservatives, who have, you can put in letters, you never quite know who's knifed you in the back. Also, the Conservatives sort of whittle it down to 2 and then have their contest there. They can also just whittle it down to 1 in the parliamentary party, as they did with Rishi Sunak, for example, getting him across the line very, very quickly. The other set of, and actually that's what happened with Theresa May as well. With Labour, it's far more likely to have more candidates. There will be a long campaign, and there will be votes from all sorts of people. Now, it's slightly different to how it was done for Jeremy Corbyn. The rules changed again. That's part of how Keir Starmer became leader. They changed the rules there. But essentially, within the Labour Party, everybody has a vote. Yes, the unions have a vote as well. The MPs have a vote as well, and it's weighted to a degree. But it would have to be an MP as well. Wouldn't be someone from the House of Lords. So it would be a long campaign. It would really suck up a lot of the oxygen from whatever else the government wants to do and whatever else they want to talk about. So you're right in that the summer after the local elections would be the ideal time to do that for them. That's when they've done it certainly before on a number of occasions. Before the local elections, it doesn't make sense to anybody in Labour. And of course, a lot of those MPs are thinking, how can I avoid a general election as long as possible? Because so many of them will on current polling anyway, lose their seats.
And if Starmer were to be forced out of office or sort of decides to voluntarily step down, would he sort of do that on a time frame of, look, I'll carry on being Prime Minister up until we have decided who is going to inherit the throne? Or would that be untenable to essentially be, a sort of a Prime Minister who's already, buried alive, so to speak? Would we have to face the likes of David Lammy?
David Lammy or Ed Miliband. The choice is a good one. No, I think Starmer would probably do what the Conservatives had done previously, many of them saying, I'm going to resign as leader of the party, so there's a vacancy for that, but stay on as Prime Minister in a sort of caretaker role, not do anything too dramatic or change things dramatically until that contest would end. Because the country needs a Prime Minister, and there will always be a Prime Minister. So in theory, that could go to someone like David Lammy, who's the Deputy Prime Minister, but actually Starmer would almost certainly stay on within that period. He wouldn't express a preference for the candidate he would want to be leader of the Labour Party, and as soon as that person was appointed, well, then they're off to the palace to see the king to change who the Prime Minister is.
If Starmer decided instead to, I don't know, pull an absolute wild card move, which I'd quite respect him if he did, if I'm honest, and turned around and said, right, I'm staying as Prime Minister, but clearly this has not been working, so I need to completely change my front bench. I'm going to get whole new faces, and we're going to take a completely different course of action, because he sort of had a minor reshuffle, which was precipitated by the fact that, various ministers had to go. But there hasn't been a complete overhaul. There hasn't been a sort of a fresh first team. Do you think that could buy him a future?
I think he'll try it, and I think he'll try it after the local elections, or possibly even before. But certainly Morgan McSweeney, who was really pulling the strings in a way that not many chiefs of staff or special advisors really have the opportunity to do so. There's a fascinating chapter in the best book about Starmer, which is called Get In by Patrick McGuire and Gabriel Pogrund, where it outlines how Morgan McSweeney was sitting in a room with various people, including Lisa Nandy, actually, and basically decided that Keir Starmer was going to be the vehicle by which he did what he wanted to do. So it'll be very interesting to see Starmer without Morgan McSweeney, what he does, which direction he moves in, what kind of change he attempts to implement. He's talked about that today to those MPs and elsewhere as well. in private conversations with people. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. I don't think a reshuffle would happen very soon. And also, every reshuffle creates enemies as well. So who do you get rid of? Wes Streeting has been disloyal on a number of occasions. He's out today as well, not just publishing those messages, but saying that Number 10 is briefing against him and saying that he was the person who was in league with Anas Sarwar, the Labour leader in Scotland, to try to get Starmer out. He says that's nonsense. This has happened before, where he alleges there is Number 10 briefing, and that shouldn't happen. If you got rid of someone like Wes Streeting, you create a very, very big enemy. Also, Angela Rayner today expressing support for Keir Starmer. How long does that last? Once she gets through her HMRC inquiry, once the local elections are over, does she then change her mind and say, actually, no, now is the time for change, and actually we've tried the Starmer strategy for, at that stage, it'll be nearly 2 years. It hasn't worked. Time for something else. By the way, I'm available with my new hairstyle. So there's a lot that could happen, and the moment on any reshuffle should be a moment of maximum power for a Prime Minister, because they are hiring and firing. But you always create enemies, and there can be a lot of danger as a result of those reshuffles.
Oh, there's always a potential for danger and enemies in politics, Peter. Wonderful being able to actually do something with you for once. That's been a real privilege and an honour. You really do know your onions. Thank you ever so much, Peter. Now go and enjoy an evening where you don't have to think about work, although no doubt you're going to be there on X and reading all the papers and boning up ready for tomorrow. Right, OK, we're going to be taking a short break, and after that, let's focus our attention on the royal family, because, yes, Starmer's not having a pretty picture of it at the moment, but things are pretty difficult as well for those who inhabit various palaces around the country, because, well, the Epstein stuff, the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor stuff, it's not very good, is it? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. We're going to be catching up with our royal correspondent, the brilliant Rupert Bell, who I hope is having a lovely three-fingered vodka with a dash of tonic just after this.
Calamity Lammy? I mean, seriously, does anyone believe that he could be Prime Minister of our country? Angela Rayner, who is still under investigation from HMRC for failing to pay her taxes. And then you've got Wes Streeting, who supposedly is the grown-up, but he was the bloke who organised Peter Mandelson's stag do and is in this up to his neck. So it's a group of completely terrible candidates. None of these people, frankly, are capable of arresting the decline that the country is in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk
You know, they say you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. I'm pleased to say that I would pick Rupert Bell if we didn't work together to be my friend anyway, because what a fine chap he is. Rupert, how are you doing tonight?
Very good. Greetings from Ireland, where my other job, as you know, Alex, is as a racing correspondent. So I'm on a pre-Cheltenham Festival tour, but I'm having to extract myself because, unfortunately, the royal family, it's not quiet on their front at the moment, as you know, Alex. So otherwise, I'm doing fine.
See, I thought you'd had a few too many vodkas and were inviting me to your bedroom. Now, tell me, I feel very sorry for the royal family with everything that's been going on with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The King saying, look, of course he would help any police investigation should he be asked to. Do you think that there's anything in here that's going to really cause a problem for the royal family? Or are we able to sort of draw a line and go, look, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a massive wrong-un. They know he is, we know he is, but actually on the other side here, they've done nothing bad.
Well, I think we've got not only a political crisis with the fallout from Peter Mandelson, and he's being investigated. You've also got the issue that Andrew, there a talk was when he was trade envoy, was he passing anything on to Jeffrey Epstein? So I think that's the issue for the royal family. And the King said he will help in saying, if there's anything that they need to do, he will obviously help. I think the issue also is that the King maybe just, when he got rid of it said, right, the prince, you are no longer a prince, you are Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The problem is, I think he said, is anything else going to come out? And I think the royal family are being continually blindsided by the latest tranche of emails and other things that are coming out, because maybe they're reading about when we are, because they said, Andrew said, I don't know, and that's why he got rid of stripped him of his title, and now he's just a commoner as Mountbatten Windsor. So for the King, this is desperately frustrating for him. And you're seeing now, even today, when he's in Clitheroe in Lancashire, there are people heckling him, as it happened last week. And he wants to get on the front foot from a PR point of view, but the royal family just can't. And that's also probably why William made a statement today. We saw Edward making a statement last week when he was in the UAE. So because he's going on behalf of the British government and representing Britain in Saudi Arabia, he knows he may be asked. Hence the reason why they came out with a statement today saying, we think of the victims. They're trying somehow to get back onto the front foot from a PR perspective. But it's just not easy because this story will not go away.
But I mean, I don't know, because I don't find it difficult to separate in my mind that Andrew is a horrible, horrible man, but the rest of them I quite like, and you can't blame them for the things that he's done. Do you think that's sort of where public opinion in general is, or is this really actually creating a far more deeper crisis for the monarchy?
Well, Andrew's, by his actions, even, last week, there he was being photographed in Windsor Great Park. There he was driving around smiling without a care in the world. That was this time last week. And then, of course, he was then moved away because they don't need any more pictures looking as if he hasn't got a care in the world. And I think that's the problem. Andrew hasn't really accepted any responsibility for the problems that he's causing the royal family with his actions, his association with Jeffrey Epstein, because that interview with Emily Maitlis now looks just like a complete sham. Because yet now, Ghislaine Maxwell last week saying that photograph was real, and other things that have come out since. It is deeply embarrassing for the royal family, and they think, well, this is, the King's younger brother, and yet he's at no stage taken account of his actions and sort of said, a mea culpa moment. It's just not happening because he's always denied any allegations, and this is the problem for the royal family. Hence the reason why we are seeing these moments of dissent whenever the King is out and about.
And yet the government have asked if Prince William would go over and do some work on their behalf in Saudi Arabia, go butter up the Crown Prince over there. Tell us more about that trip.
Well, yes, he's going representing Britain, presumably there's a lot, and he's going to see MBS, the Crown Prince, who's not, is a controversial character in some of the things that he's been associated with. So it's not a straightforward trip. So all this throws into spotlight. The Prince William is trying to represent this country, represent Britain in a positive light. But actually, deep down, you know that they want to ask him about what's going on, what does he think of his uncle's behaviour and what's going on there. So it's not an easy trip, but he's representing Britain. Obviously, the Middle East, as we know, Alex, is a bit of a melting pot at the moment. And obviously, we do have strong links with Saudi Arabia. And so this is all part of that. So it's not a straightforward trip. It's a very important trip. But, of course, like everything at the moment, whatever the royal family trying to do, there's always the lurking presence of the Epstein files and Andrew's association with all that is going on with those files.
And what about Fergie? Because, I mean, Andrew Mountbatten's are clearly an absolute monster, a reprobate, a dreadful human being. But I'm not that shocked, but I am kind of like, oh, it's kind of gross. The sort of emails that Fergie was saying, oh, I love you, oh, marry me, oh, have you had a baby? She seems nuts.
It's nuts, and of course asking for money here, paying for them to go over, her and her children to go over when he was just released from prison. You think, what were they thinking? And at that stage, Beatrice and Eugenie would have been either around about 20 years of age. So again, all very unedifying, and this need for money. And you think, with all the privilege they've got, why are they so desperate to fund their lifestyle? And Sarah Ferguson is probably at times, may not but her association with him makes her look just as needy as the rest. And sort of, why? Can't you live within your means, paying a $27,000 rent? What, for goodness sake, was she living in, that she was finding herself compromised in such a way? So she is causing just as many problems for the royal family as Andrew is, because of her association and those very needy emails to Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, Rupert, thank you ever so much. Go and enjoy your fun in Ireland. Go and check out some lovely racehorses on our behalf, and let me know which one looks the best. But do you know, it sort of reminds me what's going on in Britain at the moment. You know, the ever-collapsing farce of our politics, and just successive prime ministers only doing such tiny terms because they're just all ridiculous. The royal family besmirched by this horrifying case, and I do wonder what else is going to come out of those Epstein files and who else is going to be inculcated. But once upon a time, Britain was sort of regarded as a serious country, you know, stiff upper lip, decorum, punches above its weight, dignity, intelligence, despite being small of geographical size, something quite special. I just feel like, I don't know, it's a bit like reading some of the books of the Old Testament at the moment, with all the sort of warring factions and things going on, and all of a sudden the hand of God is lifted from you, and it's like, well, you know, deal with that now without me. It just sort of feels a bit like that in Britain at the moment. Right, what are your thoughts on all that we've been speaking about? I'd love to get a few more messages read out, and indeed perhaps some phone calls as well. 03444991000 is the number to call. It's your normal network rate. I can reassure you that Matt is in position and ready to take your call. You can also use that number to send me a WhatsApp message, 03444991000, or indeed leave me a voice note on WhatsApp. 87222 is the number to send a text message. If you're going to do that, you do have to write the word talk before you rattle off your opinions. Right, okay, we're taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We're joined by the one and only gravelly voiced oracle, Peter Bleksley, after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, what a joke world we live in. There was a story that I hadn't discussed, actually. I was going to squeeze it in earlier with Isabel, and we didn't actually touch on it, which is about the asylum system turning into a conveyor belt to life on benefits. The statistics here of the number of people, the percentage, more importantly, the percentage of people who have come over and got indefinite leave to remain, who are not actually working. It's harrowing. 3/4 of refugees and 2/3 of leave to remain people were not in work. So basically, they just come into the country and from then on, we're just affording them. They're not contributing anything. Well, if that seems like a conveyor belt of doom, listen to this. More prisoners are being recalled than being released early under Labour, which is saying something, considering almost 2/3 of the prison estate has been booted out of their cells. 54,354 times prisoners have been recalled for breaching their licence or for reoffending since Labour came into power. I mean, what a joke is this? This clearly, prison isn't working because people are just being booted out early, so they're not even there. And when they are there, they're just coming out and committing crimes and having to go back. It's just, what is this? Like, it's just a merry-go-round of convicts, you know? Does nothing work in this country? Is there no sense of anything just functioning like it used to? I mean, no wonder our streets are riddled with crime. Let's speak to Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Peter, look, recidivism isn't anything new in the world of crime. It's not surprising that people who have been part of criminal gangs or used to a criminal way of life come out of prison and potentially reoffend. That rehabilitation is not always possible with people. But when you look at these statistics and you look at quite how many people have gone on to reoffend, well, it's very alarming, frankly. It makes me think, what are we even bothering for?
But first, I'm going to start on a very positive note to answer the question that you posed just a few moments ago. Does anything work properly in this country? Well, clearly, the Alex Phillips show on Talk is working properly because it's raising the issues that we want to hear about, that we want to discuss, and that we also want to use to hold this pathetic government to account. Now, on to prisons. Labour, in their desperation to throw open the cell doors, are, of course, going to release people after they've served only a third of their sentence. You know, prison works in that when criminals are locked up, they can't be out on the streets committing crime. But we don't have enough prisons. We're releasing far too many people early. The number, nearly 50,000 prisoners being recalled to prison because they go on to commit, wait for it, other offences. It's just part of the bigger picture of Britain sliding ever more rapidly towards being a lawless hellhole.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? And we talk about the problems all the time. Thank you so much for saying that the show was at least functioning. I can tell you that the guys in the gallery all did a sort of Freddie Mercury 1980s punch then in celebration. It was like, what's this? It's Breakfast Club or something where he ends like this. But punching through time. So the guys in the gallery, very, very happy with your words of support there. But we talk a lot about the problems that this country faces, and my gosh, are they plenty. But what are the solutions, Peter? You know, you more than most know the criminal mindset. You more than most know how a lot of criminality is baked into a way of living, whether it's the sort of cohort that you knock about with, whether it's the fact you didn't get an education, whether it's the fact you've got mental health problems, whether it's the fact you've been brought up a certain way by your family, you know, which is very different to the rest of us, etc. And these patterns can be very hard to deconstruct and break. But I mean, what is the solution?
Let me throw a few more things into the mix. Gang culture, the illegal drugs industry, which actually creates more criminality in this country than anything else. They are big, big factors. But we haven't got enough prison space, but governments have been dreadful over this in recent years. They simply haven't built enough prisons. We are going to have about another 14,000 cells come online in the next year or two, but it's not enough. Build more prisons. If we controlled our borders, that would be helpful, because we are simply importing thousands upon thousands of criminals every year. And as your previous piece pointed out, we are importing thousands upon thousands of people that are nothing but an economic drain on this country, because they never get any work. They just live on benefits. It's about time this country unashamedly stood up for what it used to be and says, this is Britain. And in Britain, you go to work. And in Britain, you obey the law. And if you don't, there are sanctions for that. You either play your part, don't drop your litter, say please and thank you, behave and trust British customs, and behave like British when you're in Britain. Otherwise, sling your hook.
No, I couldn't agree more. And talking about those whose hooks are being slung, the government is apparently allocating £1.4 billion to escort and transport illegal migrants. Now, this is a 10-year period that they've put out to tender from 2028. It'd be amazing if the government is still there by then. But when I read earlier about what it takes to send a prisoner, not a prisoner, or, you know, a deportee back home, what I don't understand is there appears to be, I mean, the latest story is there's 20 people being returned to France on a flight from Stansted. This was the one-in, one-out policy. And the ones that France said they're going to have back aren't the gnarliest. These aren't the sort of gun-toting, tattoos on the face, you know, criminal overlords. They're probably the ones who, you know, the French can tolerate and think might be able to, I don't know, benefit society in some factional way. So why on earth do they need 58 escorts? 50, that's more than 2 people per prisoner. What do they do? Just to have one holding each arm? Can't you just use handcuffs? I don't understand how this works, but that seems a little bit generous, really. It seems that, are all these people mad? Do they need, like, constant restraints by 2 people? Why so many people on the jolly flight home?
Yeah, the harsh reality is deporting people is often a very, very manpower intensive business, because they don't want to go. And they also know sometimes, especially if they're on a scheduled flight, that if they kick off, that deportation won't happen. So a lot of the time, they actually need to be suppressed. They need to be overwhelmed in order to get them up the stairs, in the seat, changed to at least 2 officers, and held down while that plane takes off. It's a dangerous business. It's a risky business. The people that do it have the utmost respect from me for a very, very challenging job they do. And of course, why do these criminals and these failed asylum seekers and the other vermin that we've imported not want to go? Because this is the land of honey for them. So of course they don't want to be sent back to wheresoever it is that they came from. And that's why they are so often appallingly and criminally behaved.
Oh, I wouldn't mind being deported right now, I'll tell you that, Peter. I'm looking at everything going on, and I never thought I would say these words, but I actually am quite scared that Sir Keir Starmer's going to resign and we're going to have an absolute loon replacing him. What's your thoughts on this?
Now, you stop talking like that, please, young lady, because this nation needs you. So many people say to me, Peter, why are you still living in London? You're an old age pensioner. Why don't you leave? Go and live in the countryside. No, I'm staying. And I'm staying because this is a city and this is a nation that I love. And whilst I am now, in my lifetime, I have become a minority in my own home city, I am going to stay here and fight for what is right. The values, the manners, the customs, the levels of behaviour, and what essentially being British, being a Londoner, is all about. I'm going to stay here until I gasp my last. And if a day of reckoning ever comes, when it's them against us, whosoever us may be, then I sincerely hope I'm still fit enough to be able to put them up and do my bit for what is right.
Oh, Peter, I love that. You know, that's always what I say. I always say, you know, all these people leaving, flocking, this is my country. I don't have a second one. You know, I don't have a dual passport. I don't have some sort of heritage in some other warmer clime that I'm looking at out of the corner of my eye thinking, oh, that might be a bit better. This is mine. My grandparents fought for this. My parents have worked blimmin' hard their whole lives and paid taxes for this. You know, and it's very, I feel the same as you. I want to see it improve. But it's just, at the moment, we're being bombarded constantly by such, well, mediocrity is putting it mildly when it comes to our politics. And this is what I'm worried about. Going back to the Starmer question, is I do not like that man at all. I think when it comes to Starmer, I'm beginning to, in my head, think that I don't really like a lot of the people around him. People that aren't necessarily the household names, people who are connected to his old barristers' chambers, who I wonder whether these people are sort of the dark puppeteers in the wings of our government, making some of the more egregious decisions, like televised trials after the Southport riots and selling off the Chagos Islands, etc. But the idea of Starmer going and being replaced by Angela Rayner, it'll be entertaining for all of about 2 seconds. Oh, yeah, she's a colourful character. Yeah, she'll say some funny things of us old straight-talking Ange. We'll all, you know, titter and laugh and be cheered up for all of about 0.1 seconds. And then reality's going to hit us, which is other world leaders are going to think, what's that? Putin will be like, guys, if we're going to absolutely mess up Britain, now is the time. China, I mean, they've already got a foot in, haven't they? This current government can't bend over backwards far enough. They're doing the limbo for China on a regular basis. And my concern is that too many people in that cabinet they're not statesmen and women. They shouldn't even be on the front bench, let alone in Downing Street, at least. I don't like the man, but at least Sir Keir Starmer is sort of semi-credible on the world stage and has a functioning brain, even though I don't like him.
Well, I'm not going to fur up my ageing arteries worrying about what hasn't happened. I'll wait and see what does happen. But, of course, Starmer is a robotic, characterless, charmless civil servant. That's what he is. That's why he doesn't really have any kind of huge, great, principled position to adopt, because all his life he's been a civil servant or a lefty human rights lawyer. He's part of the intolerant left, and they are an intolerant bunch. They are also, when it comes to this cabinet, as you quite rightly point out, massively talentless. If you look at Blair, if we must do, a man I still detest, and you look at his front bench when he got elected, no wonder he got so much more done, because look at the talent that there was. People like Jack Straw, Gordon Brown, David Blunkett, and others. At least they were bright and articulate people. This lot are an absolute rabble. They are lacking in discipline, lacking in brains, lacking in character, and most importantly, lacking in leadership. So this government will limp along until such time as there's another major scandal and there can be a general election or a leadership change. Meanwhile, let's remember our pleas and thank yous, and after you, madam, and can I help you with your luggage, and are you okay there? Let's all remember the things that we had ingrained to us by our parents, and of course generations before, like mine, who fought and died for this great country. I know it's very, very difficult at times, because we might just think, oh, what's the heck, let's get on a plane and leave. No, stay, fight, be strong and firm. And remember, manners make his man, honesty is the best policy, and the truth is a friend.
Oh, Blexley, I kind of need that little passage you just said there to be my morning alarm. You know, when I'm sort of woken up from my slumber and I remember that I'm living in the country formerly known as the United Kingdom, now the disunited hellhole, I kind of need a bit of a Blexley there, giving me my motivational talk. In fact, you know, I'm going to send you a text in the morning, and if you just leave me a little voice note, that would be marvellous, because I could do with the pep talk. Peter, you are a national treasure. We love you so much. Thank you for giving up part of your evening to join us tonight. Right, well, you heard, didn't you? Alex needs a pep talk. So, come on, do the girl a favour. The therapy's going to have to work in the other direction tonight because, yeah, I'm kind of fed up with it all. 03444 99 1000 if you want to put a metaphorical arm around my shoulder and stroke my hair softly and tenderly so I feel a bit better about the world. It's your normal network rate. 8722 is the number to send a text message. Right, talk before you text. 03444 99 1000 is also the number for WhatsApp. You can leave me a voice note on WhatsApp as well. Right, pour yourself a stiff one and I'll see you very soon.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back. Let's crack on with some messages and calls, shall we? Derek in South Wales says, drug the... Can I say that on air? Drug the illegals and chain them to everything and drag them onto the plane. Ask Big Donald how to do it. Pretty sure that's against human rights. I'm not going to advocate for drugging people and chaining them up. Sounds a bit Austrian. Not that Austrians do that. Just one I can think of. Right, let's speak to Kevin, who's in Leicester. Hi there, Kevin.
Hi there, Alex. I never knew the Austrians had such a bad reputation.
Oh, they brought to the world Hitler and Joseph Fritzl. But they also brought Ralph Schulhammer, and we love him.
Oh, yeah, that guy who wears the same clothes as you all the time, him.
Yeah, old Baldy Ralph. He's brilliant. Ralph's amazing. Who actually, over Christmas, was broadcasting from his family sauna.
Okay, so random.
I'd imagine it's quite good acoustics. You know, if you go by soundproofing panels, they do actually look like a sauna. So it's a fairly sensible move. In fact, maybe that's what I should do at home. Build a sauna, and then one half of it can be a studio when I'm not sort of turning up the heat. There's a thought.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that would make it pretty difficult for those in the back room taking the calls, but it kind of would work. Very random.
How random? I am random. You know that by now, Kevin, my darling. Right, what is on your mind?
It's probably good news for you.
Oh.
Because it was to do with your chat with Isabel and how you don't want Starmer to be replaced because the rest are so bad. I think you're in luck, because I sort of said it last week, and I'm sticking to this. I don't think he's going to resign. I even think he's been in that room, you know, tonight with all his delegates and stuff. And I think he'll have said to them, look, you've got plans to screw me over and try and force me out. I'll call a general election. will lose because you can see where we are in the polls, and every one of you will be out of a job. It was just a simple mistake. It was McSweeney's fault. It was just one of them things. And I'm telling you, this man is desperate for power. He wouldn't want to lose power like this. He's got no shame, and I just don't think he's going to resign.
But I think he could call a general election, but Parliament has to vote on it by majority, and the Labour Party have quite a big majority in that Parliament, so I can't see Labour MPs voting for it because they know their seats are gone. And turkeys don't vote for Christmas. However much they might not like their leader, they're probably all sitting there thinking, oh, great, if we just change the guy at the top, maybe we can get things back on the right track. The problem is most of them are deeply misguided socialists and don't understand what the right track even looks like. So I have a feeling that a general election, frankly, just won't come. It would have to be in a really awful disaster, which we're not far from. I do wonder, though, if Starmer's forced from office and we do get a joke Prime Minister, which, is pretty much inevitable, that would destabilise the markets, that we could end up in a massive financial crisis, and then because we're in such an appalling position, even worse than now, which is kind of hard to even imagine, but it is doable. When we become Zimbabwe or something, then, yeah, I think a general election would happen as a result of everything being in absolute carnage and chaos.
Well, now you put it like that, that's actually a thing I would hope to happen. You see, I'm not with you on the fact I don't want Starmer to go. I do want him to go because I've never hated any MP. I didn't even hate John Major. I've never hated an MP, but I do hate him because of just what he's done with the raid gangs, the veterans, Chagos. I really want him to go. I just cannot stand the man. But, and like you just said, I do think it would unstable the government a lot more than it is. But the biggest reason, this is the most crucial reason why he has to go. So we need to break this partnership between him and Hermer. That's got to be broken.
So this is the thing, right? This is the thing, Kev. So I've started doing some research because I got my little side hustle on Substack where I'd like to go into detail about stories that aren't being spoken about anywhere in the media, research that isn't being done that I think is critical, the questions that we need to be asking. And so I've started, at my peril, to do a deep dive into some of these barrister figures around Sir Keir Starmer, some of the cases that they've won, the work they've done pro bono, the chambers that they serve, the ideologies they may have, the youth movements that they were part of, and how much influence they might be having over our government. Because it is my gut feeling that Starmer is a product. He is the sort of front man of a cohort of sort of legal characters who have some pretty odd ideology, to put it mildly. And so I'm sort of digging around into that. And, Lord Hermer was made a lord in order that he can become Attorney General. The man's not a politician. He didn't stand for election. He's just Starmer's barrister mate. And then you've got this sort of his other barrister mate, Philip Sands. His fingerprints are on the giveaway of the Chagos Islands. And I'm like, who are these people? Why aren't other elements of the press asking questions of who these people are when you can actually map out their influence over Starmer? You can see Chagos, a big controversy. Well, who is this Philip Sands? You can see it was actually at Hermer's insistence that we had these quick, speedy, televised trials and threw people in clink for social media posts. That was his brainchild. So who is he? What, Starmer just went, da-da-da-da, Attorney General. And then it's like, oh, look, that's the Attorney General, done then. I mean, to me, that's absolutely wild. This person is the highest legal office in the land who clearly has been at least some part in forming the policy and the decision-making of the Prime Minister. So who are you? What are your thoughts and feelings towards the United Kingdom? What is there available for me to scrutinise and look at so I can get a clear picture of the man behind the position? And I tell you what, the research I'm doing at the moment does not make for light reading.
Well, do you know, when you put it like that, that is pretty scary. And you're right, it's a bit like the EU. None of us voted for him, and I don't know the first thing about him, other than that he's a Fabian, and obviously the stuff I've learned, since he's been in that position. But I do follow your Substack, actually, Alex. But I've not read that. That's why I've not.
Well, that's because it's not published yet. I'm still in the process of working on it because I really do research. If you read my Substack, you know I research my topics. Sometimes I just do thoughts on the train home, but most of the time I sort of try and execute something that takes more than just an afternoon because, I quite like doing a deep dive bit of journalism from time to time and do things that otherwise aren't being done in the other corners of media. So thank you for actually reading my Substack, and I promise I will deliver that one on a silver platter for you shortly, as soon as perhaps on the commute home I might do a little bit more work on it. That is, if some strange man shouting obscenities isn't waving his genitals around like happened last week. That was rather distracting, can I just say. Kevin, thank you ever so much. Let's catch up with an old favourite of this channel. It's Grace in London. Hello, Grace.
That's very amusing. Hi. I'm definitely not a favourite. I think a lot of people who are listening dislike me, but never mind. It's very nice to talk to you.
Oh, you're one of my favourites.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. It's very nice to talk to you. And I'm so sorry that you had that experience on the train. Good grief, that's awful.
Oh, at least I wasn't getting stabbed up, Take your wins where you can.
Good to see. I've not had experiences like that on the tube myself, but.
Oh no, this was actually off the tube and then on the actual train proper, which these days is getting as fruity as the tube, quite frankly.
I was struck yesterday by Labour peer Lord Glassman saying that the situation is sin and needs to be repented of. And obviously a lot of people in our culture now think that we've got that language historically linked to Christianity in our culture. A lot of people don't believe in that kind of thing now, but I do, and I think that it's evident actually that sometimes situations are a terrible mess and that repentance is an important thing. And I think all of us, I believe, including very much myself, need to repent for some things. And if we turn to Jesus, then he offers us forgiveness if we repent, even though we've not done things as severe necessarily as Mandelson has done. But given this situation, I think that Starmer does need to show his contrition, not just by saying sorry, but by being repentant and standing down. He really does need to stand down. He cannot be in charge of the country with so little discretion.
It's interesting, Grace, you're one of the few people I can talk to about these things, and probably we should do it in our own time and not on air. But I was saying earlier, look, here's my trusty Bible, by the way, nice pink one. I carry it around with me and I read it every now and then on the tube.
I had a Bible and my pet rabbit nibbled it.
Oh, these ones are really nice. It's sort of nice and pink and shiny with like a silver bit. And I can keep it in my handbag, and when I'm on the tube I can do some reading. And I've been reading Samuel lately. And the one thing that sort of stands out, and I remember talking to my reverend about this, that he said he just feels like, look, for people who aren't Christian and think it's all mumbo-jumbo, I do apologise for this. But it might give you a little insight into the workings of the Christian brain, if you don't know much about it. Which is, my reverend was sort of saying he feels like the hand of God has been removed or is coming away from Britain, in the same way that in the Old Testament, the hand of God came off Israel when they started worshipping false prophets and, getting up to all sorts of nasty behaviours. And all of a sudden he's like, OK, right, I'll leave you guys to it. If the Philistines are going to come and beat you up, ain't my problem anymore. And it does, I was sort of saying earlier, it feels a little bit Old Testament at the moment in Britain, that we can see all the craziness going on, the mad pronouns, the pornography, the grooming gangs, the sort of bullying of the identity political left. And it does feel a little bit like, as a result of all of this, things are just going wrong. We're just sort of falling apart at the seams. Grace, thank you ever so much. I would sort of say, what do you think about that? But we're running out of time. But you did give me the opportunity to do a little bit of a proselytising from my studio lectern there. Right, let's get a little bit more light-hearted, shall we? Because after doing the whole, hand of God's coming off the nation, don't you worry, we're going to be joined by another God, a God of comedy, Stephen Allen, after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, let's all take a deep breath together. Come on. I tell you why. Because we're going to shake off the last 2 hours of doom and gloom and nightmare and dystopia in Britain. And just try and have a little bit of fun, shall we, before we go to bed, because I don't want to leave you all with nightmares. And this is what if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. Where have you been all my life? But if you've been a regular over the last couple of weeks, you'll know that 9 o'clock signifies the beginning of what has now become known amongst the team and I as Weird Hour. It sort of happened by accident. I remember saying to a good old Dean, I was like, well, if I'm doing that late show, should we try and mix it up a bit in the final hour? I don't know, get a comedian on, let's do something so it's a little bit more spritzy and fun and light-hearted, because everyone's had the whole news cycle throughout the course of the day over and over again, like being stuck in a washing machine. Starmer, Rayner, Miliband, migrants, and you start thinking, oh gosh, can we just do the same story again and again? No, let's do something a little bit different. Let's invite on somebody who's going to make us belly laugh, so then we can just end the day on a positive note. And so that's what we started doing. And the very first time we did this, was it the first or second time? We had Paul Cox in the studio. And everything had gone really weird because all the systems had started shutting down, and then we went off air, except we weren't quite off air. I was still on air, and I didn't know I was still on air. And then I thought there was a blackout in London, the blind was down, and it got very weird. And that sort of set the tone. It created a precedent then for what has now become dubbed, as I said, Weird Hour. No doubt Claire in Buckley in North Wales is going to message in a minute saying she's got her bowser of wine prepared. I actually hope, Claire, if you were listening, that you've resorted to getting those sort of bag-in-box box wine things that people take to music festivals with the little spigots. If you have, you're my kind of girl. Love to hear it. Anyway, without further ado, let's welcome back to Weird Hour Mr. Steve M. Allen. How are you doing, Steve?
I do very well. What an intro. You get everyone wind up before I start talking. That's the right way to do it.
Maybe, if I don't have long left in me being a presenter, I could be one of those hype people in boxing or something, sort of like combine some sort of freestyle rapping, some pom-poms.
Do you know what? I could see you doing that. There's a career option there. If everything hits the fan, then yeah, you can walk around holding up. You hold up a card, don't you? That says what round it is. Can you do that?
Oh, is that all you do? You just hold up a card? Oh, that I can do. This.
These
I
days
mean,
they probably do it by text. Yeah. Oh, she's doing it. There we go. Hey.
Done. Yay. Great. I like that. I bet you get paid pretty well as well. There's a thought. Steve, right, Starmer. Just unleash. You're going to wind you up, pull you back like a Tonka toy, and ready. Bing, off you go.
That's why I love it. It was an intro where you're saying, all people have done is talk about Starmer all day. Let's talk to Steve. And I'm sat there going, I don't want to talk about Starmer, though, because right now I've been enjoying a day of resignation watch, as everyone has. The amount of popcorn I've got through, I feel quite bloated. But it's been quite fun, hasn't it? Because you don't know. This is the problem with doing this. I love talking to you, but I'm not watching, not paying attention to any push alerts on my phone. He could have gone in the last 5 seconds or how long I've been talking, because it's been a fantastic day of trying to watch to see how long it's going to take. The peak for me was apparently he was saying he's won, Starmer, this is Starmer, let's remember who we're talking about, Starmer has won every fight he's ever been in. Now, he kind of means, like, whilst being a lawyer. I don't think he means fights. There's no way he wouldn't just get picked up and thrown through a window. But that's also not true, is it? I'm like, we're all sat here going, oh, but we remember how you lost the fight about reforming welfare. And we also remember how you wanted to cover up all the details about the appointment of Mandelson, and you lost that fight straight away in a record time. You're on 14 or 15 U-turns. You can't be the 14 U-turn guy and say, I've won every fight I've ever been in, even when I fought myself about which direction I was facing in. So at the moment we think he's still there, but I say I do need to check my smartwatch.
Hey, can I just say, steady on, this is actually a news channel. If he's gone, we'll be the first to tell you. We get our breaking news out pretty quick.
You would. You'd write it on a piece of paper and carry it around like you were announcing the round of a boxing match. And that would be the best way you could break that news.
That is normally how it works. Someone will run in from somewhere in the building with a piece of paper and put it on my desk. So actually, that's not too far from the truth. I mean, I don't know. The worst thing about the United Kingdom today is after the sort of ridiculousness of musical chairs in the Conservative Party, I've become really desensitised to this stuff. It's like, oh, well, another Prime Minister going to be booted out. It's a bit like when you just read, like, oh, look, 25 women have been sexually assaulted today outside a migrant hotel. Oh, 18 people were stabbed in London. Oh, yeah, and my mortgage has gone up by £1 million a month.
Do you know, I was saying this the other day, right? You know, there was, it was Angela Rippon who said there should be more light-hearted news at the end of news bulletins. And I did think to myself, these days, mortgage rates going up would be the light-hearted story. 15 people getting stabbed would be lighter than the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Trevor McDonald would be going like, and finally, there was a big motorway crash. Because that's not as bad as the rest of the news. So I think you're right, we've become desensitised to it. But this was meant to be different, wasn't it? After all of the non-stop, rotating, revolving door of prime ministers that we had in the last lot, this guy promised to be boring. Boring, and there's no sleaze. Day one, apart from all the free suits and the free glasses, which is also the most boring sleaze you can have, right? Free glasses, come on, you sound like a Groupon. And yet somehow that was his scandal. And then from there it was hypocrisy all the way, wasn't it?
You sound like a Groupon. By the way, for people out there who don't understand that Groupon is a website that offers you all sorts of vouchers, usually for places like Pizza Hut or something. Because to me, you sound like a Groupon sounds like a sort of alien form, like the Mekon or something, which, to be honest, Sir Keir Starmer does sound like a Groupon in that regard. Most of the Labour Party do. They all need to go down ENT and have some sinus surgeries collectively.
They do, don't they? Why is it that they all sound alike? Ed Miliband, Keir Starmer, and also Rachel Reeves. They do have that kind of. I don't know what. You're right. Maybe they just need some Olbersoil in their head HQ. I think we might solve it for them.
Do you think when they sit around and have cabinet meetings, someone needs to take in a giant bowl of Vicks and just sort of warm it in the centre of the table, so the lovely menthol fumes can waft amongst them all, and then they'll be able to actually say something in front of a camera that sounds like a normal human being?
Even better than that, yeah, they breathe in deeply and then go, actually, wait a minute, that Chagos deal's terrible. And all of a sudden they can see sense. It's all that congestion. For some reason, it's stuffing them up and they can't work it out.
Maybe that old speech therapist that Starmer was able to see during lockdown. I remember when I was at university, when I was at journalism school, post-university, we had a voice coach come on, because I did broadcast. And the first rule of a voice coach is you have to, put a little thing down on a cassette and you play it back and you listen to your own voice, which is as excruciating as when you hear yourself on an answer machine. You go, oh my God, do I really sound like that? I never watch back my shows because of it. Yes, I know I've got a bit of rotarism. I can't roll my R's as well as the next person. C'est la vie. And I remember speaking to this voice coach, and it started off sort of fairly sensibly. She was like, look, you can't change the way you talk. Some of the best broadcasters can't speak. Look at Jonathan Ross. You just got to have a belief in your voice. You've got to have a conviction in it. And I'm like, OK, great, that's good advice. Oh, then she moved on to the crystals, didn't she, and the dream catchers. And I'm like, really? You're like the voice coach for the BBC and you want people to start getting, like, I don't know, cubic zirconia and something from an Inca shop. And that does make me think about, where is Starmer's voice coach? What happened to her?
Yeah, well, also, what was she doing? Because I remember when the scandal happened about this woman who was travelling during lockdown, and what were they getting up to? So I listened to a clip of Starmer before the voice coach and a clip of him afterwards. And it was so much the same that clearly she was not doing any voice coaching. I don't want to get sued for implying they were up to any kind of nonsense, but they were up to something that wasn't voice coaching. That's all I definitely know.
I'm telling you, it was probably reading runes, doing tarot cards and, lighting joss sticks.
Do you know, I'll have a go at most people. I'll have a go at homeopathy people, because what are they going to do? Poison me? At their concentrations I won't notice. But I'll never have a go at Reiki people, because if you can fire energy from your hands, I'm worried you're a bit like Ryu from Street Fighter 2. The last thing I'll hear is like, Hadouken, and I'll be knocked out. So pick on all of these newfangled ones apart from the Reiki ones.
Do you know, actually, this reminds me the other day I was talking about the idea of having someone in here who's, what they like a medium or something, so we can actually live interview Margaret Thatcher from, from beyond the grave.
You just hear a spinning noise.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that'd be brilliant,
she is
though.
returning.
Have you ever been to one of those things where people sort of go, anyone's grandma died recently? And it's, me. Oh, it's so accurate. Have you ever been to one of those?
I'm such a cynic. They wouldn't let me anywhere near it. No, because in fact, I once had a row on air with Uri Geller because he was coming up with some kind of plan, and I said, "Oh, isn't it interesting? All the things you're saying, they're not testable." Like all of your things, it was either he was getting everyone to think about Brexit or World Cups or one of those. And I said, so if we win, you've done it through your mental abilities. If we lose, it's because people didn't think hard enough. Isn't it interesting how you don't lose? And he just stormed off. And when I got home, all of my spoons were fine. So I think it proves there's nothing to it.
If my mum was here now, she would call in and she'd say that when he did that thing and everyone had to bend spoons on television, I actually bent a spoon. It worked.
Well, she didn't know her own strength. Yeah.
No, me. I did the spoon. I was only about 12 years old and I did the spoon. It worked.
Then maybe you have the gift.
Maybe I do. In fact, there you go, Dean.
Cutlery.
Dream guest Uri Geller. Get him booked. Get onto his agent. Find out who he is. I want the Geller in here.
Yeah. Don't have him on the same night as me. He'll storm off again.
And I don't mean on the show, actually wanting to be the Prime Minister. There you are. I think at least he'd make some sensible choices over Gaza. Let's talk now about, the potential runners and riders, if it isn't Sir Groupon. I don't know who's worse. Wes Streeting, I'm going through these phases of different people are really bad. Wes Streeting's never terrible in my mind. He actually just seems like a relatively normal human who has sort of normal left-wing policies. The rest of them, they're terrifying. Who is the most terrifying in your book?
I think it's got to be Ed Miliband because he asked the nation, and we answered the question. With the rest of them, you can argue about whether you get to be Prime Minister if you've not been voted for. Do you have a mandate? We don't have a presidential system. Blah blah blah. We will all end up having that conversation if and when there's a change of Starmer, which, as we say, could be in like the next 3 minutes. But we know that no one wants Ed Miliband. The nation got a chance to vote for Ed Miliband and said, you got bacon juice down your face. And we said, no, thanks very much. So it would be very much wrong for him to go back. The rest of them, Angela Rayner, I actually feel sorry for Angela Rayner because I think someone's had a word with HMRC saying, could you slow it down, please? This is why she's hamstrung, isn't it? That she owes some money to HMRC. Until they look into it, she can't pay. If I were her, I'd be writing a massive blank cheque, try and overpay. Or she should have filled in a self-assessment form. She could have had this sorted on the 31st of January. But instead, she's waiting for them to drag their heels. Someone high up, again, sue me if you want. Someone high up has said to HMRC, would you mind dragging your heels on this to take her out the running? Wes Streeting, there's kind of no real scandal there, is there? But because he knew Mandelson, and there are pictures of him with Mandelson, then that's not going to look good. I mean, there are pictures of other previous leaders with Jimmy Savile. So you can always find someone making someone look bad in a photo. But you're right. Wes Streeting often comes up with things that seem sensible, which is why the Labour Party won't want him.
Yeah, but he's too young for my liking. I've got this thing that I don't really want a young Prime Minister. I don't think it's not about. I just think a bit of age, a bit of experience, someone who's been around the block a few times, has seen all sorts of machinations. I kind of prefer a little bit of grey hair.
Yeah, well, you want to go for, you see, you're hairist, because what we should consider is the potential of a bald Prime Minister, and I say this with good reason. Do you know the last time this nation had a bald Prime Minister?
I was just trying to think of that. I was actually there in my head, sort of spooling through all the sort of, fast pace, all the pictures, all the mugshots of various Prime Ministers, and I couldn't come up with a bold one.
Do you know how far you have to go back?
How far?
There was a run of two, but three in a sense, because it was Churchill, Attlee, Churchill, and then after that, nothing. Since then, there have been 4 female Prime Ministers. So where's the real prejudice in this world?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that we need to do more to get bold people into politics, Steve.
I'm all for it. Ian Duncan Smith had a go, but again, he was our last hope, which wasn't that much of a hope, was it?
I would say, though, looking at you right now in the sort of lumberjack star shirt in front of that green screen, you could actually be running for Gorton and Denton. You just need a couple of greyhounds and some sort of marigolds or something.
I could have a bit of that, yeah. Although, as we said last time we were on, if you want to be in the Greens, don't mention anything to do with the environment. Because that's it's not on their topic anymore, is it?
I've noticed
up in that
actually,
by-election.
at the moment, the Green Party keep putting out bits of sort of online propaganda where they mention the big shop. Well, you know, the cost of the big shop's been going up. Oh, I bet Matt Goodwin don't do his big shop down Asda. It's like, is this how far, like, politics has sort of sunk? That now we're talking about where one does their big shop in order to become an MP?
If you're truly green, you shouldn't want people to shop at all. You should have them go into one of those places where you have to take your own bags. You know what I mean? Where everything's in just one of those dispensers. There's one annoying place in Hackney that I walked past once where it's a shop, but there's no packaging. I thought that was a restaurant, right? I thought the only way to go to a shop where you don't have to carry anything home. I thought I knew what it was, but no, there's a place that's basically got their own Tupperware stuck to the wall, and you have to fill up your own troughs. So that's what you should be into if you're into the Greens.
Do people still do a big shop as well? I mean, I never do a big shop. I'm like a, you know, bits and bobs as and when I need it shop.
Yeah, although I'd recommend going back to it. I now see the error of my ways. I moved away from the big shop to the convenience shop. A fool to myself. Every time you walk past the local Tesco Express, somehow 25 quid goes out of my pocket. So, no, yeah, it's better to focus. But these days, I also get them to drive it to my house.
Apparently,
I'm really minimising the calories I burn.
By virtue of simply saying Gorton and Denton, I've opened that Pandora's box, haven't I? I've got to do them all. I've got to read through all of them.
But you've not named any. We've not named any candidates. Oh, no, did you?
I know, I said the Green candidate said about where does Matt Goodwin do his big shop. So here we go. Are you ready, ladies and gentlemen? Let's get the music on, Sam. Let's sort of like give a backing track to this.
The gallery music.
Yeah, just any music will do. Here we go. Let's settle into it. Got Sir Onkelot, the official monster raving loony party. Nick Buckley coming in for Advance UK. Charlotte Cadden up the inside for the Conservative and Unionist. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, looking tasty in the back runners. Matt Goodwin for Reform UK. He is there doing things. Sebastian Moore, Social Democratic Party. He's also there in his party's colours, keeping his jockey proud. Joseph Omika, rejoin EU, dreaming of the day we might rejoin the EU. Jackie Pearcey from the Liberal Democrats, festooned in yellow. Hannah Spencer for the Green Party, probably festooned in green. Not with a horse, instead with greyhounds. Angeliki Stoja, the Labour Party, straight from Greece into your canvassing letterboxes. Hugo Wills, the Communist League election campaign. I haven't heard from them. Now you have, and maybe he'll be your first choice. Those, ladies and gentlemen, are the candidates for the Gorton and Denton constituency by-election set to take place on Thursday, the 26th of February, 2026. I wish them all the best of luck. I am sure they're equally good as one another. Right, we got that out the way. I think I need a little break now, but don't go to it because I'm getting Steve back to start talking about the weird things going on in Wales just after this.
I think Keir Starmer is doing a very good job.
You think a man who made the appointment of Lord Mandelson and that role is doing a good job? 13 U-turns.
You call them U-turns. What I say they are is listening to the views of his members of Parliament and the public and altering. Just as I was against the original decision on winter fuel allowance. I made representations, as did many others.
But why didn't he listen to them before he made the decisions?
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right then, Steve, have you ever been in the metaverse? Have you ever put on one of those VR headsets and experienced a whole new world that doesn't really exist?
No, that seems like an even bigger waste of time than most of the things that are a waste of my time. Why would I want to have to try and struggle through another world? This one's got enough going on.
Well, you might want to enter the anti-racist metaverse in Wales, where you get to go and learn about white privilege. You might want to do it because over there the government spent more than 1.2 million quid on setting it up. Apparently, it's for pupils 16 or older, and you explore a vast, accessible and immersive 3D metaverse environment centred on a grand atrium. But then what's really weird is, you whack on your headset and off you go to the Bosnian genocide and famines in India. Hey!
Sounds like an absolute riot, doesn't it? Yeah, because previously I've only ever been told I'm the baddie in 2D before. So it's really nice to have that extra dimension of being told that my existence is some sort of a problem. Yeah, the idea that taxpayer money. I don't know how Wales is not even more bankrupt than it is, because millions spent on this. The cost that you must run to have to keep printing those road signs in 2 languages, even when the word's the same. That's the one that always makes me laugh. So I'm amazed the taxpayers can keep doing this. But it's just going to be a telling off that we already know, because we've kind of already had it. So I'm not sure why we have to jump through this particular hoop.
But what's so weird, it starts off in the predictable fashion where you go through the grand atrium with portraits of civil rights campaigners such as Malcolm X, Betty Campbell, no me neither, and Nelson Mandela. You just need to look at a photo from Downing Street and that's what that looks like these days. But then you pass through the online space, through a series of themed areas covering topics including the hardship faced by Romani travellers, the Bosnian genocide, as I said, and famines under British rule. That's pleasant. A curriculum room allows pupils to move between conference-style stands where pressing a button opens interactive lessons in black feminism and decolonising politics. One of these stands looks at sociology through an anti-racist lens. And this is the bit that gets me. It explores whiteness in language, policies and research. I never really understand this whole whiteness thing, how things involve whiteness. If you want to talk about whiteness, the Welsh language is probably the whitest of white languages. It's the oldest of the sort of European tongues on planet Earth. And in terms of, I just feel like you can't win this game, right? Because I'm here on Talk doing all my whiteness thing, being white and speaking in a white way about, whitish topics. But what do they want me to do? If I stood here and started going, Wagwan, Bamba, Glad, Mimin, Man, I'd get thrown off air for that. Please don't, sorry, Ofcom, I didn't, it was a joke. I was using it as an example. Please, I'm so sorry. Please, forgive me. What does it even mean?
List some candidates, quick. Try and make Ofcom feel happy.
Yeah, please, where's that candidate list?
Yeah, do you know what? I've looked into it, and the only time you're allowed to do an accent is if you're singing along to Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. For some reason, we're all allowed to do that, but every other accent is some sort of racist thing. You're right, there's no movement on this, is there? That just simply being white. It's slowly but surely, the language has been changed. It's not changed organically. It has been changed so that whiteness is now a concept rather than a colour, rather than a culture or anything else that is always meant to be bad. There is no hot take on this that has whiteness as a good thing at all. And what I love about reading all the details, so you can go in there, you can be told off for being white for all the different buttons, but don't worry, there is one button you can press and get told off for being a man instead. So you got options. It's money well spent. There you get into feminism, you get into the issues. They've rebranded sexism, because now it has to only be called misogyny, because anyone could be guilty of sexism, but only men could be guilty of misogyny. So, of course, they've moved the language in that way. It's these small changes that you don't notice until you're absolutely hamstrung. All you can do is just put the VR headset on and just feel bad about yourself until you cry. It probably has little tear detectors, and then when you finally cry, you're allowed to take it off and carry on with your miserable life.
I'm reading more of this. It just gets more and more mental. This whole thing gets more and more absolutely cray-cray. So they have 3D reconstructions of landmarks, including the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. What are they saying? These were once important Jewish and Christian sites that the Muslims have taken over. I have a feeling that is not the way they're doing this. I have a feeling they'll sort of try and make it sound like in the Ottoman era it was all 100% Muslim, and then the Christians came along and nastily built a cathedral that thankfully is a mosque again. which is a total rewriting of history. And they even have the audacity of using an example of dog whistle politics by a former Conservative Party MP. That's just blatant electioneering. David T.C. Davis, who tried to prevent a new traveller site being built in Monmouth because the people in his constituency didn't want it. And can you really blame them? Well, maybe I should go on an interactive exploration of a gypsy campsite, which is also available here, which no doubt has a lot of people sitting around in lovely clothes, sharing stories, revitalising traditions, really looking after all their little children, you know, having wonderful campfires, cooking community stews. I know a thing or two about traveller sites in Wales because I just happen to, and that ain't what they're like.
I mean, my only research was watching Channel 4's My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, which was an amazing TV show and probably a title that you need to apologise to Ofcom for me even saying these days. It's amazing how times have changed. But yeah, I imagine that info's gone. Also, when they talk about whiteness and those kind of issues, no one ever seems to point out what I think is an irrefutable fact. It's not like white people invented slavery. But they kind of, it's not like Britain invented slavery, but Britain did the most work to end it. And there's never a bit, where's the button where you can get to press that? Because that should be in the mix if you're really considering all of these issues. That's just a thing that's true, isn't it?
Well, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. I've got to, hold on, get the bins on, because we're actually seeing a little bit of this on the screen right now.
Oh, yeah.
My
I'll put mine
gosh,
on.
it looks dystopia. I love the fact they've actually got roadworks in this sort of like weird virtual reality land as well. Of course they do. Oh, here we go. We're going down Srebrenica to have a look at a genocide. What we got here? We've got some sort of like, you know, some craters and some bombs in what otherwise looks like a very beautiful, well put together American town. All that grass could do with mowing. Where are we now? Oh, look, there's the local parish notice boards with all the other wonderful things we could go and look at. What are we clicking on? What Jimmy Carr was? Did anyone just see that advert for Jimmy Carr? What's that?
Yeah, it's not an advert. It's who gets to say what's funny. Oh, we all know the moaning people on Twitter get to say, on Blue Sky get to say what's funny.
Jimmy Carr dragged into this.
I know. Also, it can't be in Wales because all the signs just seem to be in one language. This is not realistic at all.
Yeah, and actually that language is mainly Wales, which, oh yeah, look at all those famous Welsh people either side. Have you ever played the interactive game Room, where you go around and you spin globes and get things off bookcases and try and find clues to get to the next room?
I've never played it before. Will it tell me I'm racist?
No, I wouldn't. No. Thankfully, it's a brilliant game. But it kind of like, you know, it's making me kind of want to play this and find out where the, you know, hidden crystals are.
You see, I grew up in an era where I played Duke Nukem, so I want to go around here just saying off RPGs and everything in case there are some aliens coming at me. So we had different
I remember when there was a report when the metaverse first launched, and that Zuckerberg turned around. Why is it that Mark Zuckerberg always looks frightened? It's like someone's just said boo, and he's like that all the time. And also, he doesn't age. It's very weird. But I remember when he first, you know, did a demonstration of the metaverse, and he asked a load of, you know, top people in computer programming and AI and whatever to go and put on the headsets and experience it. And do you know what happened within like the first however many minutes? Or I can't remember the exact details of the story, but there was one woman in there who's gone down the metaverse, who's like a top computer programmer, and within a certain period of time of this thing being debuted, she got gang attacked by all the men avatars.
Oh, wow. So it really is just like real life these days. It's like London. It's not like Wales at all, is it? It's like walking through the streets of London.
1.2 million. But I can't even see how that's even permissible. I mean, do you know what? When I am queen, when I'm empress, that is going to land someone in prison. And I don't care, because I think that is absolutely revolting. Right, let's take a short break now, but don't go anywhere, because Steve and I are going to be back. Oh, no, hold on. We're not. Steve's not going to be back. I've just turned the page of my run order and gone, oh, no, that's that. Bye, Steve. Bye.
What a plot twist. Do I get killed off in the second act? I didn't realise.
No, that's because you've got to go and do bad things in Srebrenica, apparently. So off you go, down to Cardiff. Go visit Techniquest while you're there, if it's still standing. That's just probably where this thing's set up. Right, OK, that is goodbye to the brilliant Steve N. Allen, because after the break, we're going to take a peek at what's going on the other side of the pond with the brilliant Adam Coleman. I should know this, because when I was speaking to my team earlier and they said we're doing an American segment, I said, can we have Adam Coleman? He's brilliant. But you know what? My brain ain't what it used to be. OK, it definitely needs a bit of a break, therefore, and I will see you just after.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
All right, there we go. Now I've turned over a new leaf and I'm going to be far more professional now. We are joined by the fantastic Adam Coleman, my favourite columnist of them all at the New York Times. Actually, my favourite columnist of them all in America. Perhaps even, Adam, my favourite columnist of them all, full stop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big compliment.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
You have no idea what you're up against in this country. Don't worry, the bar's pretty low. Right, tell me. I mean, this is kind of very much designed for our audience in the British press. I don't think you'd have necessarily got the same news story over in America. But Trump has been up to his deportation. He loves a bit of that. And some of the worst are now being booted back to their home countries. And it turns out that deportees back to the United Kingdom tops the number being sent back to Afghanistan and Iraq. 35 of the worst are being brought back here.
Yeah, I feel like that says more about you guys' immigration processes than ours. But maybe it's possible that we just don't have as many Afghan immigrants that come here to the United States. Obviously, you have the war in Afghanistan, you have all the dealings with the Taliban. There's just not a strong importation of people coming from those countries here. So that might be why. Obviously, you have UK passports, a lot easier for you to come over here temporarily. Maybe people are overstaying visas. That's probably the likely situation that someone who's coming from the UK is being deported from here. So, I mean, there's logical reasons as to why.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these people are sort of fairly hardened criminals, but I just imagine that, yeah, I mean, you speak, English people can't really go anywhere else. They don't speak any other languages. It's sort of like, and let's be fair, Australia is just prisoner island. You know, we kind of invented that country by sending our worst of the worst. Well, I don't know, weren't the worst of the worst. They just nicked a loaf of bread back in 1802 or something. But how are you guys doing it? Because we're all sort of looking at ICE, we're looking at these sort of mass deportations, and we look at our own country and go, you know, for some reason in the United Kingdom, even when we've got some hook-handed radical preacher who's been telling everyone, you know, to destroy the West, we can't ever seem to send them home because there's some sort of spurious legal reason why they'd be safer in the UK. So how does Donald Trump do this? Do you not have the same litigation when it comes to multiple appeals against deportation orders?
I'm no expert or anything like that when it comes to immigration courts by any stretch of the imagination. Well, one thing I will say policy-wise, the thing that's different, people call Obama deporter-in-chief. The thing that's different is the border is secure. The numbers at the border are microscopic in comparison to what we saw just a few years ago. So he's shoring up the border, and we saw that in a matter of a month or so, which we were told we needed this grand legislation to shore up our borders, and apparently we didn't. We just actually needed to enforce the law and empower our authorities to do so. But he's empowering ICE to do the thing that they're doing. Right now, ICE is battling more bad PR coming from an insurgency that's embedded within the media as well. But outside of Minneapolis, they're doing their job, right? They're doing their job with not a lot of fanfare, not a lot of people who are chasing them down left and right. And they're actually able to pursue people who've had long-standing deportation orders. So when people are making it seem like ICE is just walking down the street looking for brown people to deport, of course that's not happening, and that's stupid. They know where the people are at because they've long had deportation orders, some of them for years, and they just never left.
Yeah, I wonder why it is, because, you know, most of your issues with immigration came through a land border, and a very, very, very long land border it is, both to the Central Americas and to Canada. But I was just sitting there thinking, how come you don't have people setting off from small boats from Mexico and sort of just going north up the coastline?
Well, for the longest time, it was just easier to go through land, especially because the cartel was making an industry out of human trafficking. The thing that's different when Trump came into office was he was all about tariffs, but he was all about tariffs using that as a political tool as well. And he says, Mexico, you have caravans that run through your country literally all the way from the south of Mexico all the way to the north. If you do not stop it, we're going to tariff you to death. And they blustered for about a minute, and then in a couple of days, they said, okay, we'll comply. And all of a sudden, the wave of immigrants coming through stops.
Yeah.
And we don't have the problem. So there has to be some sort of political will. And dare I say that Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime to have the political will to challenge an ally.
Does it, as an American, look, I'm going to sort of lay my cards on the table. My audience know this about me anyway, and I think you could probably suspect what my views are going to be. But I look at what Donald Trump's up to, and I'm like, blimmin' heck, I wish he could come and do that over here. Not only are we not deporting some of our evil criminals back to the countries from whence they came, we're giving those countries foreign aid, for crying out loud. We could just easily go, oh, do you know what? Pakistan might not give you that, multi-million-pound check, and they should take some of these grooming gang people away for us. Thank you very much. But is it, it's really hard to know what people feel in America when you see these scenes unfolding in Minneapolis. It's easy for me sitting in Britain going, yeah, brilliant, get in there, excellent, you're doing the right thing for your country. But does any of it give you the EBGBs?
Well, as far as like what's happening in Minnesota?
Yeah.
I see it a little bit different, obviously, because I'm in the media, and I see it from a PR standpoint versus what's really happening on the ground. I know that what you guys are being shown is from a small lens, but the reality on the ground is that the far left radicals are creating almost like a war reenactment scene, right? Where you only have a vision of slices of the city, and these are the battlegrounds. And so they're creating conflict in specific places. But once again, if you leave the city and you go to other places, ICE is all over the country. You don't have these particular things, but that's why they show up in certain spots. They show up in Portland, they show up in Los Angeles, they show up in Minneapolis. These are very left-wing areas where the government is enabled, and in many cases, the government is part of the entire pushback against Donald Trump and ICE. So I think that's what's hard for you guys to kind of see, is because you don't live here, which is understandable. I don't live in the UK, so I can't get the full picture as to what's going on.
Well, amazingly, and one thing that is a bit of a miracle in our times is that the police haven't come and knocked on my door yet, and I say all sorts of hateful things, Adam. So I'm pleased to know that a Trump official, Sarah Rogers, who's the lawyer leading the US president's public diplomacy, says that British free speech victims should seek asylum in the US. That's exciting. I'm kind of hoping now that I do get the knock and I can come and live over there and hang out with you.
I mean, not to toot my own horn as a pro-American person, but I like America. It's pretty nice. Some states are better than others. I would happily welcome you to come here. We would like to host you in New Jersey. I wouldn't say live in New Jersey, it's too expensive, but we'd love to host you and other Brits into our country. It's a great place to come. We have our share of problems. Obviously, you guys see some of that, but much of America's problems are very, very isolated incidences, and it's a wonderful place to be. So I don't know if that'll actually come true. Free speech refugees, but
they're up to something, though. Your side of the pond, they're clearly watching everything going on. They've just been all the hearings taking place in the House Judiciary Committee from various people from the United Kingdom, from across Europe, talking about this subject. And so, thankfully, there is the watchful eye of the Trump administration on the situation in Europe, because it is slightly dystopian. I was saying to someone I was speaking to earlier, it's amazing how quickly you become desensitized to stuff, actually, when you read about it in the papers every single day. And it's like, I don't know if you know about this, Adam, but Sir Keir Starmer might be about to be booted out, which makes it like the Brazilian Prime Minister in 6 months or something. I don't know. We just need to change the Prime Minister all the time in this country. I don't know if that particular news headline has hit America yet, because normally when the UK news gets interesting in America, I get called up by some of your channels over there to throw in my 2 bits. But no, did you know that over there?
No, actually, I wasn't made aware of that. But yeah, it is interesting, the difference between the two. If our president screws up, they stay in power. So, who knows?
Who knows? No, we just love changing our Prime Minister. It keeps us all entertained while the country goes to hell in a handcart. Now, talk to me about Trump criticising the terrible Super Bowl show. I'm going to sound very British right now. I don't really know what Super Bowl is. Is that baseball?
That is football, or American football.
See, I told you I didn't know. Super Bowls, I don't know, it sounds like it should be Skittles, actually. And this is how ancient and out of touch I am. The person who did the halftime show is someone called Bad Bunny. I've never heard of him, but then apparently he's one of the biggest international stars right now, who hails from Puerto Rico and used the halftime performance to do a whole sort of tribute to Puerto Rico and other sort of various politicised messages. Tell us more. What's gone on here? Why is it upset the good old Donald?
I think it has more to do with language. Bad Bunny does all of his songs in Spanish. I mean, so a lot of people don't know what he's saying, per se, and that's what a lot of conservatives are complaining about. I'm one of those rare conservatives that doesn't care about the Super Bowl. I don't really care about the Super Bowl halftime show. I don't think it's this big incident that it means something about the culture. I think people blow things out of proportion. I think the halftime show has sucked for a long time outside of Bruno Mars. So I really don't care, but I understand why they would choose Bad Bunny. One, the United States, population-wise, has the second most Spanish speakers out of any country in the world. And a lot of people don't realize that fact. So we have a lot of people who speak Spanish. He's a very internationally known. And on top of that, Puerto Ricans are Americans too, which is why he was rocking the Puerto Rico flag and the American flag. So, I don't find this to be the worst thing that has ever happened in America. Like, I think everyone's blowing this out of proportion. It makes sense. He just won a Grammy. Like, this isn't some guy who's off the street. This is someone who's internationally known. Of course you would have this person, or this type of person, to be in your halftime show.
I must admit, I'm rather jealous of his name. I quite like that. I'm rather sad that someone's taken Bad Bunny, because I would have adopted that for myself at some point down the line. Adam, thank you ever so much. I always love catching up with you. You're so brilliant. I just love the way you just tell it like it is, straight from the heart. Brilliant man you are too. Ladies and gentlemen, the fantastic Adam Coleman. Isn't he an absolute gem? He's ours, Dean. No sharing, OK? Ours. We keep him. You tell Kev to keep his wrinkled old mitts off our guests. By the way, he keeps nicking our guests. We have some brilliant people lined up that are sorry they're doing Drive now instead. Huh? Yeah, mitts off, Kev, if you're at home. He'll be sitting there with his glass of red eye going, I can see it right now. Right, OK. Well, that wraps up all of the guests for tonight's show, but it doesn't wrap up the show because we're going to end with a little slice of democracy, an opportunity for you to get on your soapbox and talk to me about any of the things that's on your mind. Yes, it can be the news, it can be Starmer, it can be Streeting and Rayner and Miliband and the other one that Cardwell mentioned, Al Cairns. Me neither. Could be Bad Bunny. Nope. Me neither. Could be the Super Bowl. Nope. Me neither. And honestly, there's a huge cohort of things that I'm very much an expert on, but American culture is not one of them. So perhaps enlighten me. I would love to hear from some of you about whatever it is you want to discuss. You can also quickly sneak in a last-minute message. 03444991000 is the number on WhatsApp. 8722 if you want to send me a text instead. You've got to write the word talk before you write your message. That way it finds its way into this particular studio. OK, I'm going to take a little break. The last one in the show, and speak to some of you after this.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, welcome back to the show. Look, it's Richard in North London. Hi there, Richard.
Hi, Alex. Nice to talk to you again. And this, the thing about the woke education in Wales, it's reminded me. I mean, I don't know if you've seen on social media. I mean, it's obviously there are loads of stories here, but there's a story on social media today about a child from, I think, Bedfont or somewhere his parents had had a letter because he'd not been happy to take part in a Ramadan assembly. Apparently, there's a bit more to it than that, but I just thought his parents had got a letter. Basically, the child appears to have been kind of labelled as a racist, and I don't know if you came across this last week, but somebody you may know, Simon Jordan.
Yeah, I know good old Simon.
He had an interview with a boxer called Deontay.
Oh, we heard about that. That just happened in that studio behind this panel.
And anyway, it's quite. I don't know what he said, but apparently, he annoyed Wilder, and Wilder got up and stormed out and was going on about white privilege, this, that, and the other. And the point is, Alex, we can't actually reform these schools. We've been talking about school reform for sort of 20, 30 years. Now, back in the 70s, a man called Keith Joseph, who advised Thatcher, wanted to bring in a voucher system. So in other words, you, the parent, get a voucher. You can take it where you like. Now, which means you could homeschool, or which means you can pay for some schooling from home, or you could potentially even put that voucher towards private education. And the point is, Alex, the reason it would be a good system would be the state spends £7,000 per year per pupil on this woke education. So potentially you're giving parents a voucher of 7k that they can take what they like. And to me, it's one of the only ways. Because I mean, I just think today, the person I know who is the best, or put it this way, the best historian I know is a man who's self-taught, and he's just got an O-level maths, he's got O-level English, and O-level physics, and he left school at 16. He got a degree in surveying, and quite literally, he's the best historian I know. If you ask him anything about history, he knows it, and he's self-taught. So this is the thing. Education.
I feel what you're saying, and do you know what? The way that the education system is at the moment. Look, I don't have children, but if I did, I would probably be thinking twice about whether or not I wanted them to send into the school environment, because they fill their heads with such dangerous nonsense that, frankly, needs to be banned. Yes. But at the same time, you know, school is much more than the lessons you are taught. It's that sense of community. It's hanging out with other kids. It's forming relationships. It's friendship groups. It's, you know, arguments, diplomacy, playing sports. It's all the things that sort of shape the characters of young people.
Yes, it is. Yes. And I guess what we really need, I think in the States they had like alternative schools called charter schools that were sort of much more focused around, well, frankly, traditional Christian values, for instance, and much more focused around the sort of discipline that parents want. But basically, Alex, we've got to break the power of this educational establishment, because it will not change. It cannot be reformed. You know, literally, I mean, the teacher training colleges are full of all these.
Well, yeah, you could. If this government can come in and say, right, this is the way we're changing the curriculum and we want it to include, decolonisation or things like that, then another government could come in and say, do you know what? We're going to ban any of that stuff from the classroom.
Yes, but the trouble is, those teacher training colleges, they're full of people. The people that train the teachers are people that believe in all this stuff. Because the trouble is, when you think about it, the Tories have been trying this for 20 years. We've had grant-maintained schools. We've had more, and we've had these academy schools, but the education system is seems to be more and more taken over by the woke left.
No, so well, a lot is more and more taken over by the woke left. I think teaching's always had the propensity to lean a little bit left-wing, which is fine, I suppose, as long as teachers leave their politics at home. But the problem I have is with some of these other sort of alternative lessons that are being taught to kids, and I just think, come on now, you're supposed to do the R's and the R's, but you're not supposed to necessarily tell them that they are almost have original sin for being born white and stuff like that. Richard, thank you ever so much for your call. Now, talking about that weird Welsh virtual reality monstrosity that we saw earlier. Jules in Bristol has rightly said those virtual reality roads look like our everyday ones for all those potholes. Well, yeah, it was supposed to actually be Srebrenica in Bosnia after a massive war. But I see what you mean. I was driving to see my parents at the weekend, and I was like, they live in the same house that I was almost born in and grew up in, and it was like, I'd have a 4x4, and my little jaw was chattering away on my spinal cord. Claire in Buckley. All right, darling, how are you? She said, hey, Alex, I do have mine. Not in a box, though, but might be worth a try at the weekend. So there you go. Oh, wow, been a long day Monday in the office. I'm a benefits officer. So a glass of wine of an evening calms my mind and sends me off to sleep nicely, ready to process another day's worth of eye-watering hands out. By the way, I'm with Steve. I do a big shop and get it delivered. I do also try to meal plan, but it doesn't always go to plan. Is that because you've been on the and so you don't cook it? Am I right? But wow, benefits officer. Bet you got some horror stories. We want to hear them. Jason in Pompey says, hi, Shaniqua. What have you done with Alex? I know. I don't know if I'm going to get wronged for that impression. It was all in the spirit of demonstrating cultural appropriation, I guess. What's wrong with William Pitt the Younger? He was a prime minister. Yeah, I don't really know where that message came from. That is so random. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with William Pitt the Younger. Anything? I literally don't even know what provoked that particular message. Let's speak now to Jean in Warrington. Hi, Jean.
Good evening, Alex. You need to run to be an MP. You really do.
I tell you what though, Jean, I have this sort of like phobia that there's this whole thing in politics, because I used to be a politician, right? I was elected to the European Parliament. That was a good old laugh. But I have this thing that now there is so much offence archaeology, where they dig up something you said, or a tweet, or a comment you made, or this didn't age well, or once upon a time you gave this opinion, now you're giving a different one. And to my name, there's now hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of me gobbing off on various topics. And I just kind of think, yeah, that could come back to haunt me. So maybe my political days are over.
Well, two things. One, I took my grandson for a haircut. A new Turkish barber opened up, in the town.
Yeah.
There's 36 of them now in Warrington. And I was talking to the guys. They got a £25,000 grant to open that, and they don't pay any rates. Right? That's one thing. You said you like to get stuck into something. Things. But secondly, I've been looking at some of the things about these grooming gangs, rape gangs, and when the scale and the depravity is made public, to the wider general public in Britain, it's going to cause civil unrest,
I've read some of those court transcripts, Jean, and they are harrowing. Harrowing is doing too much heavy lifting. I mean, some of the descriptions, I mean, it's just unconscionable. It's so hard to imagine this taking place anywhere in the world, let alone the United Kingdom. But I'll tell you what is quite scary. There was a company who was being used to keep all the archives of court cases and court timings and so on and so forth. And guess what? This government are shutting them down and have told them to delete all of their records. Oh, because of GDPR or something. And they've turned around and said, OK, well, you know, let's go to the Information Commissioner. What's going on here? We're storing data safely. Loads of journalists use us. No. The government is saying, delete it all. I find that really scary. Something else not being spoken about out there, or that was in the Times today. That is where I got that story. But pretty freaky stuff. Jean, thank you ever so much. Let's squeeze in quickly Mark, who's calling from Vienna in Austria, because I have a feeling he might have heard me say some disparaging things about Austrians earlier. In the spirit of loving Austrians, by the way, Mark, how are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Mark here. The thing is, I know Ralph Scholhammer, just in case.
Oh, I love Ralph. He's great.
Yeah, just boot Starmer out of office. Do me that favour. He's ridiculous, because my mum is English, and I used to be proud English one, okay?
Yeah.
And one important thing is, the next time you're in Austria, in Vienna, okay, you're buying boots, because I saw that interview, they're on me.
Oh, bless you. Do you know, I've never been to Vienna, and it's very, very high up my list. I have been to Austria. I spent a New Year's period in the